Hey.
Up, everybody. Can you believe it? Can you believe that we, the only podcast in the world, predicted the war with Iran? I
We
think we
did
should be
predict it.
silver medal. Yeah, we're the only ones who called it.
Wow.
Not a single other person saw that coming.
Speaking of that, by the way, I don't fuck with this war. I don't fuck with it.
Do you fuck with the war, bro?
I don't fuck with the war.
Well,
Too
we're
late
gonna
now,
get into
bro.
that later, but I'm actually curious. There's like a lot of interesting takes that aren't just war bad or war good.
Mhm.
And you know, people dying. Saying people dying is bad. That's the easy take. The hard take is having a nuanced position.
Well,
Maybe
let's
some war okay.
yeah.
let's save that until Lakshya goes. He's going to go at 5. And he
Gotcha.
said he's going to join in 2 minutes. So
2 minutes. Oh my god, we have
Get your
to entertain
shake
the
out
audience
of
for
the-
2 minutes.
well, it's up to you.
Well, there is some breaking news. There's some breaking news that the
Yeah.
Supreme Court is preserving for now. I haven't read it yet. The GOP held congressional district in New York City for 2026 elections. So I'll take a look at that and see what's up with that. But that would be probably some primo bullshit if that occurs. But I'll take a look.
What are the implications of that?
That the Republicans would have one more seat
Oh, okay.
in New York. But overall, I
but
should say
it
the
wouldn't-
redistricting shit hasn't worked the way Republicans have thought. But that would be a setback.
And it would be for this year's maps. My understanding was couldn't do anything until 2028 maps.
It would be for this year's maps. I think there was a state court ordered redraw in New York, and the Supreme Court is staying that right now.
Gotcha. I don't care what these
Which
assholes.
I think it's
do.
some
They
bull.
Strike down the Voting Rights Act, whatever, man. It's gonna be too big to rig.
Too big to rig.
Too big to rig.
How many people in your debates, Guy? How many
Hmm.
too big to rig people do you meet who say like the 2020 election was rigged, the 2024 wasn't, even though the Democrats held all these positions? Do you get a lot of those people who say it was too big to rig?
Oh yeah, because I challenge them. You know, you can't really talk about it on TikTok, but I do challenge them and I say, "Well, why is there no evidence at all that the Democrats tried to rig it then? At all, nothing." And they're like, they just have no answer for that at all.
I had a super chat from Dazradani that said, "Is that the Supreme Court of New York or the Supreme Court?" I thought the New
The
York
US
Supreme Court
that-
decided this, is what he said.
U.S. Supreme Court, so the United States Supreme Court.
Oh,
Actually, the highest court in New York is the New York Court of Appeals.
Yeah, the lowest court is the Supreme Court, right?
Yeah. Yep. The
That's
trial
so
courts are. Yeah.
Um,
Those are the
keep an
courts.
eye-
There's like it's super complicated, but yeah, basically.
weird.
Keep an eye on that backstage, Soy Bill.
No,
Oh,
he's
there
here.
he is. All right.
He's here.
Oh, there we go. Yo, what up, Lakshya?
Hey guys, how you doing?
What's up, man?
Doing well.
Good.
The light of
just-
Jesus is
you should-
penetrating your window.
Yeah, close your blinds. It's putting a big lens flare on your face.
Hell yeah, girlfriend point of view, man.
No.
Hell yeah.
This better?
Yep.
That's good.
Oh,
That's
good.
great. Coming in good.
I was just telling my chat that I think that you're the friendliest friend of the pod, because is this your 3rd or 4th appearance?
Third, I think. It's been fun.
Third?
Nice. Yeah. Well, listen, I wanted to invite you on because, well, frankly, there's just so much to talk about with respect to polling.
Like
I don't
the
even know where to
2008
begin. Where do you guys want to start? I really don't know.
Let's
mean-
work our way least to most contentious. Which things got Lakshya the least flamed on Twitter
Well-
and the most flamed on Twitter?
Well, let me.
already
Can
reading.
I ask you a question in general? Like, where are you standing on polling after the disaster of 2024? At this point, do you think that they've improved their methodology? Like, how do you even feel about polls in general at this point?
I think polling is in a crossroad. Well, everyone always says this is at a crossroads and they just want attention. But like, what I think is really happening is that it has never been easier to put out junk data and get an audience. There is always going to be an audience built around telling people what they want to hear. And the way I can tell you about it is this, right? Like, a lot of these slop polls that come out are either from people who have been in the industry for a long time and their old methods don't work anymore because the response environments have changed. You know, like It's a lot harder to get Trump supporters in polls now than it used to be. Like 30 years ago, it was not as hard to pick up people in polling, right? Now it is, because no one picks up phone calls, and social trust is so low that, and it's so polarized that the party of low social trust tends to get underrepresented in like big polls, like Trump voters. That's one of the challenges facing it. We all know about that. The other challenge is in credibility. Pollsters have taken a very, I don't want to say liberal because that's like a partisan term now. Pollsters have taken a very expansive view of some of the things that they can and can't do. And I think like that leads to things being put out that are just misrepresenting what the public wants. And primarily that's around issue polling. So it's very easy to get people to agree with you if you just phrase the question the right way. And this is not just a moderate or liberal or conservative thing.
Yeah.
The moderate Dem PAC Third Way had like a conference. One of their poll questions was, what do you agree with more? Abolish ICE and have no immigration enforcement in America, or would you like to reform ICE from the inside but not abolish it? I'm like, what the fuck, guys? Like, this is the kind of thing you call a bad name.
Yeah. Well, I mean, a couple things there. The first thing that I'm thinking of, is it not true that 2024 was the best presidential cycle of polling that we've had since 2012? But then also, please introduce yourself, because while we have a lot of regulars, maybe some people are not familiar with your game.
Yeah, so my name is Lakshya Jain. I'm an ML engineer / software engineer by trade, but I also happen to be the head of political data at The Argument. But that's a fancy word for saying I run their polls and I write columns based on the polls that I conduct. So that's the main thing that I do. I do a whole bunch of political data. We founded Split Ticket like 4 years ago, and that's where you probably heard a lot about, like, for you folks on the call, the whole moderation versus like progressivism versus conservatism. That was like, we made a baseball type of metric, wins above replacement, to assess electability. So before this, that's what I did. And like, I don't know, I think blending software engineering and polling has really interesting ways to go about it. Lets you mine a lot of data and get a lot of cool insights that a lot of people don't think of. But then also, I think you just have a front row seat to like what's happening in Silicon Valley, and you're like, oh, I don't feel great about this sometimes.
Well, why don't we jump straight into? You mentioned that you're the pollster for The Argument. You came out with a poll, was it last week? And it seems as though every time you come out with a poll, it elicits the most like viscerally angry posts that I've ever seen for about 2 to 3 days. Yeah, why don't you talk about that poll that you released last week and get into it? Yeah.
Yeah, I would say that we did a poll on the public's opinion on trans rights. And the big thing that we found there was that the public, I think we as liberals have had this view that the arc of the universe bends towards justice, right? It's long, but it bends towards justice. And what our poll showed is, at least when it comes to trans rights, we have seen backsliding in a way that basically no civil rights movement has seen in generations, right? You would have to go back to the time of like post-Reconstruction to find something backsliding this much. And what I would say, and what I wrote about was, I'm like, one way or another, the trans rights movement has completely lost the public opinion battle as it stands right now. And we showed our poll, which showed things like the bathroom bill, for example. If you guys remember the 2016 bathroom bill, Republicans lost a whole governor election over that, right? Trump won the state by 6. And then the Democrats beat the incumbent Republican governor because he tried being bigoted about bathrooms. And then people were like, no, wait, what the fuck? Fuck this. And then like a whole bunch of companies left the state. North Carolina got hit with an immense business backlash. Donald Trump was like, this is stupid. What are you guys doing? And that was like hailed as like the signature victory for trans rights. And so I was like, look, guys, 10 years on, bathroom bills are plus 20 in popularity. Something has gone very wrong here. And it's probably worth looking at the movement and figuring out like where did they go wrong? Because yeah, the Republicans put in a lot of money, but like both sides are going to play politics over this. You don't just expect that like one side is going to be like, oh yeah, sure, go ahead. There's always going to be a side pushing against you. So I was like, something's gone wrong here. And you would think that I called for like the lynching of Joan of Arc.
Well, I want to say, I think the reason you're seeing so much anger about it is it's at the same time you see people shitting on Gavin Newsom for saying what I think can be perceived as common sense, but absolutely can also be perceived as throwing trans people under the bus when he says we need to focus on table issues and not pronouns. And if you view that as, okay, I'm not going to like be pushing for everyone to have their pronouns in their emails, it's like, yeah, a lot of people seem like as anything that deviates from their normal life, they'll be like opposed to regardless of what it is. But if it's, I don't want to help out or take an affirmative stance on trans issues, that could be really bad. And so when you introduce this poll at that same time, people see that as, oh, so therefore we should go with the polling and not support a bathroom bill. Where my opinion on this is, I don't know about you guys and weigh in, we should take an affirmative stance and say, I don't give a shit that 53% of people are strongly supporting this, like, you know, trans people need to use their birth sex bill. I think that's stupid. And I think we should take an affirmative stance and try to push people the other way. But that's just me.
Well, I think with Newsom, one thing I want to point out is the reason Newsom's getting that reaction is because nobody trusts him. It's not about what Gavin Newsom is saying. It's about the fact that Gavin Newsom is saying it. Look, I'm from Santa Clara. I grew up 20 minutes from where Gavin Newsom went to college. He grew up in Marin County. I live like less than an hour from that now. So trust me, everyone here knows Gavin Newsom or his, you know, someone in his orbit. Gavin always does what's best for Gavin. Like, it's not a secret here. And the reason Gavin Newsom got that reaction is not because he said we need to be more common sense on these issues. What he said is what Bernie Sanders has been saying. Like, no one wants to be police, just let people be. But when Newsom says it, you don't trust him. That's the thing.
Can I ask, Lakshya, is there a broader element about trust with respect to the Democratic Party that they're doing enough in terms of the messaging? So let me give you a following statement, something like, Democrats haven't spent enough time or money messaging strongly on trans issues. Would you agree with that sentiment, that Democrats have sort of dropped the ball in terms of their messaging if they're losing this much ground?
I think they've dropped the ball in terms of their messaging. This is one thing where, by the way, I actually do have some sympathy from like, I do have sympathy towards like the online crowd saying Democrats kind of failed them. Not because Democrats started voting for a bunch of anti-trans legislation. It's objectively true that the Democratic Party is better than the Republican Party. It's night and day, especially on trans rights.
Right. Yeah.
But now I'm going to add the but. The issue of what wins Democrats' elections is not the same as can you advance trans rights. Those have overlaps. Those are not the same thing. And the issue here is that with the Democratic Party, the more they talked about trans rights, the more ground they lost. And so at some point, they said, we cannot talk about this, or we really, really need to cede ground. And I think now that's kind of true, but it was a choice to get here. And the way we got here was that people picked the most ineffective ways to elevate this issue in salience, the most ineffective ways to platform it. And, you know, Democrats started taking the Republican bait on a lot of the culture wars too, which I found pretty disappointing in hindsight. And I think so, Pisco, to your point, I don't think it's that the Democrats didn't message enough on trans issues. I think it's more like the way they did it and what they did ended up picking all the wrong fights and picking the angles that voters disagreed with us on. That's what I think happened.
Can you get into more detail about that? Like, in what ways do you think this was the case?
Sure. So like one of the pieces that I have coming out actually like Wednesday is literally what happened with the gay marriage movement and why was that like so durable, right? Like in our poll, in the same poll, we found that 66% of the country is in favor of gay marriage being legal, something like 66%. And this is near its all-time high in support. Even as you saw the backsliding in gay rights or in trans rights, gay marriage is at near an all-time high in support, including by plurality of Trump voters. How did this happen? The way that it happened is the activists in the movement made a very conscious choice to change the framing of the movement from one about morality into one about fairness. So with the gay rights movement, opinions started to change on this long before people thought it was morally acceptable for two men to have sex with each other. There's a lot of people, even now, who think it is not morally acceptable for two men to have sex with each other, but they also think they should be allowed to get married. And with the trans rights movement, the argument wasn't necessarily just in terms of fairness, and fairness wasn't necessarily even well defined. I'm going to bring up the sports issue again because I think it was actually pretty central to the whole start of the Republican push. They didn't start with the bathroom bills. Like, they didn't start gaining traction through the bathroom bills. They picked the weakest issue, the one where most Democrats don't agree with the party, sports. And Democrats then didn't have a frame back, so a lot of people started fighting on the sports issue. The gay rights movement made a choice to frame everything in terms of fairness. What is fair? What should we do? And they also learned to accept half measures. They learned to start. Civil unions are not the end goal, but they are a good middle point so we don't backslide. We work incrementally. The trans rights movement had a no debate culture, which the Democratic Party continued to foster with its activists, with its staffers, online where all the journalists are. That had the effect of radicalizing elites against them.
What do you mean no debate culture?
So there was a thing where in the mid-late 2010s, the no debate culture was this. On a trans rights issue, it would be no debate that whatever went for cis women went for trans women. If you disagreed, you were a bigot. Now, listen, I am in full support of people using whatever bathrooms they want. Okay. Like, I think this is a really stupid issue. But I also recognize this is not an issue where there is broad agreement on it. So you can't have a no debate culture. You need to be like, okay, we will persuade you that this is okay.
And it goes something like this, right? It's like, I'm not going to debate my humanity with people. I'm not going to debate my right to exist with people. And that's like, to even give air to this conversation is itself some sort of attack and illegitimate in some way. That's how you are characterizing it, right?
Yeah. That's it, right? That's exactly it.
Would you say that this kind of culture is one of the reasons why you have a situation where I can't remember who was giving testimony on Capitol Hill, and the Republicans, like, I feel like all of them were just asking this person, like, just define a woman, and the person just refused to refuse to define a woman.
Was it the confirmation of Kentucky?
Maybe was that it?
I mean, it's not the only time they've done it. So they've pulled that card a lot. Yeah.
But there's like such an obvious answer to this, which is like a woman is an adult human female, and we also have trans women, and like you can make these kind of distinctions, but there's a sort of pushback to make any kind of distinction between a trans woman and a cis woman, and I feel like that instills a sense of fear that the person is going to be, castigated by the progressive bloc if they adopt that framing.
I just want to be clear. I just want to put out there, I don't think it's that simple. I think even the definition for biological human female, that if you were to probe that a little bit further, there's some play in the joints, there's some uncertainties. It can't just ground out into things like production of large gametes. It can't just ground out into certain chromosome arrangements. And so I actually don't buy that. I think we do need gender studies and a lot of stuff. I want to put it out there that I know, and I agree with Hutch and everyone, that there was like a reluctance to engage, and that famously the Ketanji Brown Jackson hearing is there. But I actually do think it's more complicated than people give it credit for, even the fundamental questions.
But it definitely seeds the ground to all the people, like, they won't even have the debate. They're shutting down your speech. And that was like part of the reason they were able to capture so many people who ostensibly don't agree with right-wing politics, but also were like confused at the lack of conversation here, because most people don't even know anything about trans people, let alone see a debate about it or anything like that. So,
which is why this is why I think it's good if the fundamental questions, what is a woman, what is a female, if those questions are like kind of complicated and there's some edge cases, there's these different conditions, that means that we need like even more gender studies. We need even more conversation and open rhetoric, in my opinion, about that if we want to get to brass tacks.
This is where you lose people, because people are not able to comprehend that sort of stuff. And the big thing here is the Democrats and a lot of progressives, a lot of activists kept getting suckered into taking the bait on this and starting to fight on Republican issues. What the Republicans did on trans rights was the inverse of what the gay marriage movement activists did in the 1990s. Okay. So in the 1990s, what we saw was this: the activists would, for a long time, like, gay marriage was basically fighting a losing battle because people viewed it as a moral issue. So activists made a conscious choice to shift the debate to one about like familial love and individual rights. And it didn't change the public's opinion on the morality of the matter. But what they managed to do was they changed the frame of the debate. And as they changed the frame of the debate, the other side started adopting that frame and talking in that frame. So the Republicans here started talking about sports. They took the fairness advantage. And they're like, all right, we're just going to talk about fairness. We're going to talk about fairness in sports. If Steph Curry was trans, would you say that Steph Curry could play in the WNBA? This is a stupid question because no one is going to say yes to that answer, right? Like, no one is going to say, yeah, it's fair for Steph to play in the WNBA if Steph becomes a woman. No one's going to say that. But that's the frame that people will.
I mean, yeah, the fringe will, and I think that's the point that Lakshya is making. But I do want to push back a little bit, Lakshya, because you said that the Democrats ceded ground on trans issues, but in my opinion, unless you want to get into detail and maybe you're privy to stuff that I'm not aware of, but like on the issue of Gavin Newsom, I'd say at best he ceded ground rhetorically in a very superficial way that didn't actually walk back support for trans people. Because if you listen to what he said, just real quick, and let me, I'm almost done. If you listen to what he said was, of course, people have a right to be concerned about fairness in sports. ... So he validated the concerns, which is like, say what right or wrong, probably 90% of the country have these concerns because it's just been thrust into the mainstream so often and it just comes up so often. But he followed that up with saying he doesn't think that the state should get involved in regulating these kinds of things. So he's not actually giving any kind of policy grounds to Republicans whatsoever. He's just kind of slightly meeting them where they're at and acknowledging and validating people's concerns about fairness.
And where I disagree is I don't think Democrats ceded any ground on policy on trans issues. That is not what I'm talking about. Okay. I actually completely agree with you. The Democratic Party is the reason that trans rights is not a -70 in the United States right now. Because if the Democratic Party adopted the position of half of their base on trans issues, you would see public support for this collapse. The Democratic Party is the one thing standing between like basic existence for trans people and like a deep catastrophic backsliding that makes the UK look like Vermont. So I'm not here to say the Democratic Party is backsliding on trans issues. That's not the point. What I'm saying is how you choose to fight a battle matters, right? If someone is your lawyer, and fairly or unfairly, that's kind of what the Democratic Party is in right now with the position of trans people, right? Like, you're essentially their advocate. If someone is your lawyer and they keep fucking up in court, yeah, you'll probably like, yes, they're better for you than the prosecution is. But that doesn't mean that they're doing a good job for you. And the Democratic Party did a really good job with legislation for trans people and legislation that protected trans people's rights. But when it came to the frame on this debate, I think we can all agree that where we are now, 10 years from the bathroom bill, things have gone really bad. This is not where anyone intended. And if you want to say that, like, we stand up for marginalized communities, it is fair to say that we have failed, the activists have failed, the trans movement has failed over the last 10 years. And it should not be controversial to say that. Saying that gets everyone mad at you, but I think it is what it is.
Well, are you positing that if we had the same legislative policy, but maybe we framed it in a way, because I think this is a good way to frame it. If you look at kind of how the weird stuff, like the calling of people weird, took off when Kamala replaced Joe Biden, in the same way saying, why do you care so much about what these people are doing with their lives? Don't you want them to be able to make their own choices? If they were to frame this that way, we would have a more successful Democratic Party and a more successful trans movement.
I don't know that if the policy was the same, everything would be the same. I don't know that. I can't say that.
Well, you suggested that if the Democrats adopted what the most democratic, the constituency says, this would plummet trans rights because it would bring unpopular issues to the forefront. But if you took an affirmative pro individual rights stance on this and push this and try to change the legislation and the mindset of people in the same way we did in California with Prop 8, like pushing for gay rights and did this countrywide. I mean, you saw this transformation happen on an issue that was unpopular. Is there not some path for Democrats to message differently and have the same ethics for protecting trans rights and actually push this conversation in a positive direction? Because clearly it didn't work in the way we wanted to in the last 10 years. But that doesn't mean that trans rights are a failing issue. It means that potentially, hey, people got really upset when they had to have pronouns in their emails or something silly like this that ultimately doesn't matter in terms of protecting trans people versus like making sure they can get hormones. So like, how do you push that conversation and actually protect these people?
So to be clear, when I said that if the Democratic Party had adopted the position of what half its base wants, right, like the position that support for trans rights would backslide a lot. What I actually mean is this, like, I think people don't understand how many Democrats believe that this is just that how many Democrats actually disagree with the trans rights movement. I'm not talking about taking positions like transports, like, oh, let Steph Curry compete in the NBA. I'm not saying that. I am saying the other direction. There are a lot of Democrats who are very, very conservative on trans rights and are still Democrats. I can literally
put some concreteness there. I'm sorry. Let's just put some concreteness there. So, for example, people who believe that Title VII, other sort of employment protections shouldn't be extended to trans people. Is that a widespread belief? Other sort of bills on people over age getting trans-related transition medication, surgeries, that kind of stuff. Is that a belief that's widespread among Democrats? Can you fill it out a little bit? Oh, here we go.
Yeah, it's in his poll. I mean, like, yeah, you can see that even people that voted for Harris are still not like overwhelmingly supportive of certain issues for trans people. Yeah,
for minors, right?
Yeah,
well, but in terms of
about puberty,
no, I can give you some hard numbers. Okay,
sure.
People who believe that saying you are a gender that is different than the one you were born as is morally wrong. Okay, 20% of Harris voters believe that. Okay, 20% of Harris voters believe that. 71% disagree. So my apologies. Should not have said half. It is more like 1/4. Okay, 20 to 70. That's the ratio. 20% of Harris voters just straight up believe that if you identify as a gender that is different from the one you were born as, it is morally wrong. So when I say if Democrats wanted to adopt the position of a good chunk of their base, which, by the way, let me be clear, that includes 50% of Black voters here. 50% of Black voters believe that identifying as a gender different from the one that you were born as is morally wrong. If Democrats took that point of view, you would see what we see is that the base tends to follow their elite leaders as well. So that's what I mean when I say that there would be a lot of backsliding.
Got it.
Right. And so, but the converse of that is if we took a more affirmative position, there's a way that we could push some of this electorate to being more trans accepting, no?
But that's what we tried, right? For 10 years, that's the type of thing we tried.
It's not a binary, right? It's not, we tried to be pro-trans, that sucked. I think a lot of the pro-trans messaging was like, even to me as a pro-trans person, was really like annoying and like very virtuous signaling and not very effective.
Yeah, we agree.
Guy, I feel like you were trying to jump in a minute ago.
Well, I just want to say I understand there's been setbacks for the trans movement, but we have a trans woman in Congress. We have a trans woman who was confirmed by the Senate, including Republicans. So while I feel there are steps back, there are some steps forward. And I feel like the public acceptance of trans people must be there to some degree if we have someone representing, so many people in Congress as a trans woman who is well respected. So I try to look for the wins as well.
I mean, is Sarah McBride really respected? One of the first things that the Republicans did was to change the rules to force her to use a different bathroom. That was literally like they did that like the first week. And so, I take your point, but if you're a trans person in this country, I don't blame anyone that is in that spot for feeling nervous about the current moment, given the slew of anti-trans legislation we're seeing at the state level. In red states.
I'm not dismissing that. I'm just saying that there are some huge steps forward as well.
Yeah, I mean,
right. But I mean, here's what I would.
You just you guys discount that? Does anybody disagree with me that a Senate confirmed trans woman as assistant health secretary and a trans woman in the House of Representatives is not a big deal?
It's a big deal. But it's also, you're looking at like, okay, that's her district versus like nationwide. How is this issuing, and how many people are using this as like a wedge issue in an election when it really shouldn't be? That's like a bigger concern. But yeah, I think we still have made a lot of strides within the party for sure.
Well, I've always felt that that's how you get these newer things accepted by America, is like people see somebody just being normal who lives life like that, whether they're gay or whatever, and they start to accept it, and it moves forward. So I do agree there's been missteps with what we've been pushing for, and the messaging may not be working in many ways, but I do think, to me, that's a sign of progress.
Yeah, and the congressman like misgendering her like in front of everyone, I think was like such a good clip of, wow, you just look like an asshole to like the average person.
Right.
yeah.
Which is like, I think, yeah, good messaging for pushing normies more towards pro-trans stuff.
What
Also, I have to say this before I forget, Lakshya, I think you have a bad batteries on your smoke alarm.
Dude, I know it started this morning. I really hate it. And I honestly, I was like half debating asking you guys, can I step out and fix that shit? Because it started 2 hours ago and I am so annoyed by it already.
Fine, we don't live in a high fire danger area during an incredibly hot season or anything.
I know, right? Frustrating. I'm in California. No.
You have to leave at 5, right, Lakshya? Because I know we could stick on this for a while, but we also definitely want to talk about the Graham Plattner polls and the Tallarico and Crockett polls as well, if you have time for those.
Yeah, so let me wrap on one thing on this, and feel free, Hutch, or anyone else, if you guys want to just correct me on it. But here's what I would have done, right? Like, I think in hindsight's always 2020. I would not have had this thought in 2016. What the gay marriage movement did was they learned to accept certain half measures to secure what they had, and then continued pushing on acceptance in the rest of the areas. So they learned to neutralize unpopular frames before they took off. In this case, I actually believe, had the Democratic Party not fought on the sports issues and framed everything in terms of fairness, and then if they were asked, do you support men and women's sports? They'd be like, no, that's stupid. Stop debating about this. No one's talking about that. But why do you believe that trans women should need to use the men's bathroom? Is this what you want? And pull up like a picture like Kim Petras or whatever and be like, do you want her using the men's bathroom? Is that what you want? Had they done something like that, I think you would have seen a very different outcome from what you had. It involves a little bit of policy moderation, which is undeniable. It does involve a bit of policy moderation. The second thing it involves consistently and in a disciplined manner, taking the framing of fairness and sticking with it instead of fighting on the other frame. And what Democrats did was the worst of both worlds. They picked the policies that were unpopular, elevated that to fringe issue, or took the Republicans' bait in elevating that into the central issue. And then they watched everything get tarnished with that in association because they were so afraid to lose on anything that they lost on everything.
I want to wrap this up by just getting to sort of brass tacks. How much of an impact do you think, if any, do wedge issues and culture war battles over trans issues, how much does that actually translate to electoral consequences? And, well, yeah, I guess that would be the way to end that. I mean, I have a kind of a broader point. Like, I feel like, how much do you think Democrats having a reputation of being too scoldy and mean plays into electoral consequences, like negative electoral consequences? Is the trans issue kind of like a part of that? Or do you think the trans issue itself is actually causing meaningful changes in outcomes of elections?
I think it's, so I'll be careful here. I don't want to say it doesn't matter. The public uses some of these things as like a competency or sanity check. Okay. So like if you're Rob Sand in Iowa, you can't just go and say like, no, I think that the sports issue is like, I agree with the progressives on this. You can't say that. You will lose some votes at the margin for it. You will not lose that many votes. Even the Trump is for you and Kamala's for they, them ad, that wasn't even Trump's best ad. It was a good ad, but it wasn't the best one. And that ad rolled in illegal immigration, transphobia, and crime into one ad, right? Which, God, what the fuck was a VP thinking in 2019? Anyways, like, see, when I say unhelpful shit, this is exactly the type of thing I'm talking about. But I don't think you would lose that many votes on this, because in our poll, Democrats led by 6 at the same time as the public's view on trans people was the most hostile it had ever been. You can clearly win elections even despite keeping this. And that is a choice for people to think about. Do you want to just stick where you are and let public opinion kind of guide you and then like change based on that? Or do you want to just say like, you know, screw public opinion. We are what we are. We stand for what we are. And we will win or lose elections on other things. The Republican Party has a lot of unpopular elements in their platform. They still win elections too. So, you know, both sides can do it. I won't say that this is the big thing holding Democrats back. I do think that it hurts on the margins in red states and policy, and people should get freedom to break from the party on that. Does that answer the question?
It does. Yeah, it does. I mean, I'd love to spend more time on that, but I do want to get to these other topics too. So I don't know. I think there's 3 things. I want to talk about Tallarico versus Crockett. I want to talk about Platinum versus Mills. And I want to talk about the 2028 primaries. So why don't we just do it in that order? Give us your thoughts right now on the state of the race in Texas. If you had a gun to your head, who do you think wins the Dem primary? Who do you think wins the Republican primary? And who do you think wins that general?
Tallarico, Paxton by 2.
Oh, that breaks my heart. It makes me sad. Why are you saying Paxton? What do you mean?
I will say, like, I don't have a high degree of confidence in that. Paxton is probably one of the worst nominees I've seen since Roy Moore. And I mean that with all my heart. I think Dr. Oz is a slightly better nominee than Ken Paxton is what I mean.
Sure.
And famously, Dr. Oz said crudité in Pennsylvania, and that was one of his campaign scandals. Paxton, meanwhile, is like doing corrupt actions. He was, I think, indicted for some fucking bullshit that he had to pay back. Yeah. And he was impeached for sure. Yeah. So that's the.
I'm just a big Tallarico stan because I think his campaign is something that we haven't really seen in this kind of way. And I think his efforts to be more nonpartisan, and, you know, he does populism, and I don't like populism, but populism seems to be connecting with a lot of voters right now. And there does seem to be a lot of cross appeal. I think it's interesting that he's kind of weaving scripture and the teachings of Christ as in a pitch for like liberal politics and progressive politics. And I just think there's a lane there, a possible lane that he could actually maybe claw away just like a couple people on the more centrist side of the right side of the aisle. But you don't think that you don't. What are your thoughts on that?
I think all of that is true. I also think Texas is a Trump plus 15 state. You have to do a lot to win a Trump plus 15 state. We are talking about a state where Donald Trump gets 56% of the vote, right? Kamala Harris gets 41%. It is really hard to go from 41 to 50. It is really, really
here's
hard.
A question. Lakshya, do you think that the better, I know the standard is always go by the last national election, but is there a reversion to the mean of Biden in 2020 when, I mean, he lost Texas by what, 5 point something?
5.5.
In other words, what is the more accurate assessment of how partisan Texas is? We've had this narrative for years. Texas is turning purple. Texas is turning purple. And there was a consistent trend of becoming more blue every national election. And then we have 2024, which bucks that trend. Is it accurate to say that Trump is a plus 15 state, or was that a one-off? Just like the votes, you're seeing a lot of Latino voters who in droves went to Trump, black voters a lot more than you would think, black men vote for Trump. Is there a reversion to the mean happening that it's not a real Trump plus 15? What are your thoughts?
I think Texas is really relative to the nation, because that's what matters. I think Texas is roughly an R plus 12 state. That's a combination of where it was under Harris, which was R plus 13, and then where it was under Biden as a nominee, which is R plus 11 or R plus 10. I think Texas is an R plus 12 state. I think Democrats win the House vote by 7. And I think 7, give or take. And I think where you end up after all of this is Paxton is a really bad nominee. It's also really hard to get a 5% candidate advantage. Fetterman was a good candidate. Okay. I realize that this guy is like brain damaged now, but Fetterman was objectively just a good candidate, especially for Pennsylvania.
For the moment, for that election.
That would make Shapiro an excellent candidate, because Shapiro like just stomped Mastriano.
Well, Mastriano was probably the worst gubernatorial candidate I have seen in like a generation, just to be clear. So Mastriano made Dr. Oz look Mastriano made Dr. Oz look like Mother Teresa.
Yeah.
And Shapiro
than
Fetterman.
We haven't won statewide as a Democrat in Texas since like the early 90s. So I've been trying to caution people, like, let's focus on races that are more realistic. But how does Crockett do versus Paxton?
I think if Crockett is the nominee, you're not going to see Dems put a cent into Texas. I think Crockett loses by 8. I think.
But why then? Why then do you think Kamala endorsed her? I don't think Kamala is just endorsing a loser.
You think Kamala has good political instincts for what wins the median voter?
Sure, I do. I think Kamala has had an amazing record up until very recently.
What is that amazing record? Please enlighten me.
Well, her starting in San Francisco as DA, where she ran unopposed for re-election, then Attorney General, where she won handedly re-election, and then going on to the Senate.
Whoa, time.
And winning as vice president under Biden.
She won by 15 in a state that voted for Obama by 23. Like, this is, if you put me in a state that voted for, if you put me as a nominee in a district that gave Kamala Harris 65% of the vote or 63% of the vote, and you said run here, I'd probably win that election just because a rock with the Democrat next to their name would win the election. But that doesn't mean I'm a good candidate, right?
Well, but these are competitive states as well.
She was up against other competitive candidates.
These are like San Francisco is one of the most competitive cities in the nation, and to run unopposed for DA, I know it was a while ago, is pretty remarkable.
Do you mean competitive against other Democrats? Is that what you mean?
Yes.
Democrats.
Oh, okay, yeah. All right.
Yeah, well, so I think Kamala is very skilled at navigating intra-democratic politics. I don't think that's the same as navigating inter-party politics. And I think those two skills in many ways are diametrically opposed to each other, or even orthogonal to each other, at best.
Well, then, to IRI's point, wait, sorry to interrupt, because I think it's a really great point. If she's good at that, could she be nominating Crockett, not because she thinks ultimately she has an amazing shot at beating Paxton, whoever the Republican nominee is, but because she wants to navigate and get ready for the primary that's coming up that she's going to compete in for president?
I think that's a very good
signal.
I think it's a very good signal, and I think it's entirely possible that Kamala continuing to, stay active in politics as in a way that ensures that she retains the support of Black leaders in South Carolina. It's a very plausible theory. And in fact, I think that would be a rational explanation for why she did something that would definitely elevate her standing in the eyes of influential groups in the Democratic Party, but not necessarily correlate to what wins elections in Texas. And I think that's important, because to win in Texas, you have to win over Republicans. And to navigate intra-democratic politics, you have to win over other Democrats.
I have a good question from my chat. Old Scotty says Beto only lost to Cruz by 2 points, and he was like a gun grabber. He was like, "Hell yeah, we're coming for your AR-15."
He didn't do that. He didn't do that until the primaries, though.
That was a little after, right?
Yeah.
Sure, but like this is kind of like the perception of him anyway, is this like ultra lib. So if he was in that close of a race, would you not say that Tallarico is a better candidate just in general among the Texas populace, and that he stands a better chance, or is Cruz that unlikable?
Cruz was bad.
Cruz is bad. I will say that Cruz is really bad. I think with Paxton, I will say that I think Paxton has like a 1 in 3 chance of losing. And I would have said Beto had I would say like that is probably a worse starting position than Ted Cruz had in 2018. See, the thing is, guys, like Ted Cruz as a candidate made a lot of missteps, but Cruz also had incumbency. It was going to be harder for Cruz to lose in general, especially after Kavanaugh. Kavanaugh really polarized a lot of the electorate in a way that didn't necessarily exist among the softer portions of it. And that really helped Cruz. I will say that I think right now, I would see a cleaner path to Tallarico winning Texas than I would see for the Republican Party losing Texas in 2018. I think if you took Beto 2018 February and you took Tallarico 2026 February, Tallarico has better odds. Beto played it very well in 2018. I don't know if Tallarico can do that. Is he going to be the same guy that says God is non-binary on a podcast? Is that the kind of Or are we getting
Did he say that? Based.
All right. We have to move on from this, but I want to tell you right now, I'm willing to lock in a bet with you right now. If Tallarico wins and Paxton wins, I'll bet $50 that Tallarico wins.
Hutch, you can't say this. I know yesterday you just released I used to have a gambling problem video, and now every time you try to bet one of our guests, I'm going to tell you not to.
Shut your mouth. Shut up. You want to take that? You want to take that bet, Lakshya? Are you a betting man?
I'm Jain. I can't gamble, but I'll tell you this, okay?
Okay.
I would, if I was a betting man, I would not take that bet because I am not super confident in Paxton, because ultimately Tallarico has to make up a 5-point candidate effect on Paxton. Could he do it? That's the same as Dr. Oz. So, maybe.
I think he's got the juice. All right.
I want to leave Texas. We got
to get to Platinum. But
I have one question on Texas. Just one question on Texas, and that's the Republican race. It sort of locks into what you were saying before about certain polling. There was a poll released by Cornyn and his people, or at least people affiliated with him, that shows him a little bit higher. What do you think of the race? Is it really that competitive? And is Paxton going to get hurt at the end of the race? And then we'll move on.
I think Paxton wins. I think it's going to be the bloodiest primary seen since 22 Pennsylvania, and the effect
of the runoff.
The effect of the 22 Republican primary in Pennsylvania was that Dr. Oz was done from the start. Same with Arizona 22. Masters was done from the start because of the negative advertising. I think the same thing could happen to Paxton here, but we haven't seen it. I expect Paxton to win. I don't know how negative Republicans will go.
Okay, these are not firm predictions, but it's the same question. So gun to your head, if you had to pick who wins the Republican, well, obviously Collins is going to win that primary, but who wins the Democratic primary in Maine? Who wins in the general?
Plattner wins the nomination by a comfortable margin. I would say like 10 points. And then I think Plattner wins the general by like 1%. And I hate Graham Plattner, so that's
wow. Okay. Now I'm curious, if it was Mills, would she beat Collins, do you think?
Mills would beat Collins by 4.
Wow. What is now what is this based on? Because that's not really what the polling suggests, right? I feel like I've seen a lot of polling that shows that Plattner is stronger than Mills in a contest with Collins.
Yeah. And the persuadable voters right now are not necessarily paying attention. The people who are swing voters in Maine, this is the biggest misconception people have. People always think swing voters are like high information voters who like pay attention to every little thing and then like make their choices based on that. Swing voters, by definition, if you're a high info voter, you're almost certainly a partisan. The high info swing voter lives exclusively on Twitter. So like the people, what these polls should tell you right now is that Janet Mills is a pretty weak nominee. Maine was a state that voted for Kamala Harris by 7. Okay, Susan Collins is more unpopular than she has ever been. Susan Collins isn't even clearing 45% in these polls. As an incumbent running, she's not even clearing 45%. Donald Trump got 46% in Maine, basically. Okay.
And everyone knows Susan Collins in Maine. Trust me. Like Susan Collins is a household name in Maine.
Susan Collins is not doing that well in polls. It tells you 2 things. 1, that Collins is less popular than ever before. 2, the Janet Mills, everyone knows Janet Mills, and people broadly don't love Janet Mills because she's really old and she's the exact version of the Democratic establishment that they all hate. Now, because Kamala Harris won Maine by 7 in an R+2 year, you would expect that in a D+7 year, that's like a D+14 baseline, right? It's really hard for Collins to get a 14-point candidate effect, considering in 2020, when she was much more popular, that's when she got that effect. She's less popular now. Mills is a better nominee than Gideon, probably. I'd say like Mills wins by a bit more. Plattner, I think the reason Plattner is polling well is because Plattner, people don't know who Plattner is, but they don't know these scandals, okay? The average person in Maine has not read of this like anti-Semitism scandal. They haven't really heard much about this tattoo. They have heard, right, about this working class guy maybe like running for the Senate, and they're like, this is a good idea. Like, I like this guy. My prediction on Plattner being a bad nominee is not based on what he is right now in the eyes of the average voter. It is what he will become as the Republicans put $50 million in attack ads against him and show that he has a Nazi tattoo on his chest.
Won't that gain him votes for them?
Had a Nazi tattoo. I just want to say, it's one scandal, right? I mean, do you really take the extra, like the retweet of some account as an indication that he was aware that that's like a anti-Semitic account, or when he went on that show or whatever for that guy? Do you take those as knocks against him?
you could justify one of those things.
Yeah.
You have him.
Listen, I don't like Plattner either. I endorse him. I don't like him either. But I'm just saying, like, it seems like one scandal. The scandal is the tattoo. Going on someone's podcast who's a conspiracy theorist who ventures into like fucking Zog posting and stuff. That's just typical of many populist podcasts, including TYT.
Wait. He said he was a big fan of that.
I'm a fan for a while. They're vets,
but also, you can't use TYT as the like, well, everyone does a little, like, Anna Kasparian is literally doing the merchant meme and Zog posting now, too. So that's not a good example to bring up.
No, okay. But I just say, you asked why do I endorse him, even though I don't particularly like him, is because I want to win the race and I want to be a bulwark against the GOP,
you have a better GOP. But if you have a better option in your mind,
I think that Plattner, my intuition is that Plattner is a stronger candidate against Collins than Mills is. Otherwise, that's a big point for me. And I don't have the same fear that people will go for it.
Plattner, as it stands right now, with the information that everyone in Maine has in their memory, not the ads they've seen, just how many people know, given how few people know about it, etc. Plattner, as it stands right now, is a better candidate than Janet Mills because most people don't know about the scandals. Plattner was the perfect candidate for Democrats had this not popped up. But Pisco, I want to point this out, okay? If you are a World War II history buff, as Plattner says he is, if you have a Nazi tattoo and you say you got it when you're drunk in Croatia, okay, that shit is on your chest for 20 years. At what point
he's lying? Wait, no, yeah. No, I think that he's lying about when he found out that it had some connection to Nazis and stuff. I think that he's lying about that. And I think that speaks poorly about his character, no doubt about it. I just don't think that's enough to think that he's a Nazi and anti-Semitic. And I think if you review all of his posts that he had on the Reddit stuff, you're not seeing that the same kind of consistent, I don't know, JQing, that kind of posting. And other than the tattoo, I mean, what's the big evidence that he hates Jews?
But okay.
Other than the Nazi tattoo. Sorry, I'm sorry.
Oh my God. Yes, other than that.
But like, if you have a tattoo, plus you repost the anti-Semitic poster, plus you go on the podcast, plus you say I'm a longtime fan. Like, at what point do the coincidences stop? Like, why is it that every scandal this guy seems to have lately is of one specific kind?
No, you know why? It's because people are trying to push that angle. That is why. I mean, listen, again, I'm not a fan of Graham Plattner, a huge fan of him, but the reason why they're pushing this is because that's where they feel that he's sensitive, and he reposts an account that shows he's anti-Semitic. There are some times where I like posts from accounts that are anti-Semitic. I'm sure I've been on Tim Pool's podcast. I know, but would you say, Pisco's anti-Semitic because he might have retweeted an account that's like an anime profile, and down it, I didn't realize that they're like a Groyper account. I don't think that that's a fair inference. And being on people's podcasts, I don't think that's enough either, especially in this age where we like let. My view is, let me finish this. It's my last sentence. I think all of these Trump sycophants are fascist scum, and I'm okay with people going and interacting with Trump and actually like doing some good work and trying to convince people.
Well, listen, I'm with you. If he becomes the nominee, I will endorse Plattner. I mean, I'm the harm reduction guy, and I mean that shit. That's an easy call, but we do need to move on from this because we only have.
Come on.
Okay, we only have 5 minutes, but yeah, go.
Right. Quick. I don't put much stock in these state polls. Number one, tell me if I'm wrong for doing that. I just think it's like 400 people. They're wildly swing one way or the other. And Janet Mills is the known commodity, and Maine has like the oldest population on average. So why wouldn't they just go with the known electable, someone who's won before? Like, why would they take a chance with this random fucking dude that they don't know anything about?
This is so, Guy, I'm with you on that. I do feel like people looking at the numbers right now tend to forget that incumbents start out as polling pretty well and generally tend to lose ground with time. This happened with John Tester as well in 24. It happened with Sherrod Brown as well. The incumbent always starts out better, and then people remember which party they traditionally vote for, and it converges. I don't think Mills is a great candidate, but I think Mills is a safer candidate. And to your point, I think Mills' age in a place like Maine is significantly less of a disadvantage than it would be in, like a state like Michigan. Like, I think it would be less of a liability in Maine. So I think Mills would be a better candidate, but it is what it is. People have decided.
Okay.
Okay, so last topic, and you said you were kind enough to say that you could stay an extra 5 minutes. So we got about 9 minutes here. The state of the 2028 primaries. I feel like there's a really direct way we could get at this question because there was some reporting that came out yesterday or the day before that there are forces that are pushing, genuinely pushing AOC to run as president in 2028. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think that this is an opportunity? What is the current state of the electorate? Is the lane for the progressive candidate narrower or wider than it was in 2020 and 2016?
So my opinion is that it's Newsom is most likely to come out as a nominee. I do not like Gavin Newsom, so that is its own set of challenges. I think between the two, AOC is probably slightly better electorally as well. And this is because I think Newsom gives you all the disadvantages that establishment Democrats tend to give you. He's not meaningfully different from AOC on policy, right? Like Newsom is not an example of a moderate running. Newsom is just as liberal as AOC is in a lot of things. He's maybe more conservative in like a couple different like low salience things, but mostly people code him and AOC as the same, hyper-partisan Democrat figures. But Newsom has one thing that AOC doesn't, which is that Newsom is governor of California and he has successfully gotten Democrats 5 House seats, basically. Nothing that AOC has done comes close to that in terms of fighting Trump. And because of that, Gavin Newsom's star has been elevated. He's the most popular Democrat among Democrats in a lot of ways. And that's why I think Gavin Newsom is likely to be the 28 nominee. Now, things can change. I expect there to be a lot of up and down. And I think that, the primary will have multiple front runners at some point. But you take the polling for what it is. And Newsom, I think, is the front runner.
And you don't think, because I remember you were like not poo-poo on AOC's chances. And so this is all consistent with what you were saying before. I take the view that AOC codes much more left-wing for insiders, for people who are like in the know and like political, and also because she's a woman. I think that for a lot of people like in the ball game, they view her as like much more left-wing. But for the normal person, I would tend to agree with you, but that's just my intuition. Is there polling that supports that, or is that also just kind of your view on from an intuition vibe space perspective?
Yeah, no, that I can actually give you numbers on this. So like we test favorability of people like very regularly just to see what it is. Okay. And like 8% of Trump voters had a favorable view of AOC and 73% had an unfavorable view of AOC. And when it came to Gavin Newsom, I can actually pull this up instead of spitballing. So let me actually just do that right now. When it came to Gavin Newsom, 9% of Trump voters had a favorable opinion of him and 73% of them had an unfavorable opinion of him. So it's the same. 8 and 9% is literally the same. There is no difference. That is just margin of error in a poll. So there is really no substantial difference in the way that outsiders perceive these. Inside the ball game, Newsom does worse in the Democrats with the hard left-wing demographic. They don't like Newsom. But when it comes to conservatives, etc., like AOC, I think it's just proof that Gavin Newsom is like not really that different, not viewed as that different from AOC in a host of areas. And we just don't have enough evidence to suggest he'd be substantially more electable. So we'll see. I mean, I will say Newsom does better like economic moderates and economic conservatives and social moderates and social conservatives by a couple percent than AOC, but like not by enough to suggest there's any daylight between them.
Yeah,
I will say a couple on substantive policy just real quick, and then I'm done. I know I've been talking. I think that we have to address it. There are some differences. I would say differences in terms of rhetoric on certain foreign policy, especially Israel. AOC different than Gavin. On healthcare specifically, unabashedly, AOC will immediately jump to Medicare for all. I'm not saying that Gavin is against Medicare for all or vetoed Medicare for all in California. I know that triggers some people when we talk about that, but
Pisco, I think he's talking about perception, though. I don't think he.
Yeah,
I mean, yeah. I think he's
I'm just mentioning that. I think there are substantive differences, and then finally, I think the endorsement from New York DSA. I think that there are differences.
Soy pill, get in there.
Right. I was just going to say, like, if you look at the machine, I always say, like, I think AOC is a liability insofar as, in a general, the amount of propaganda that has been pushed against her since she got into office is comparable now to what I saw from Hillary Clinton. But you see almost this exact same thing of attaching every negative thing in California to Gavin Newsom. And so that poll actually kind of affirmed all of my prior vibes of like, yeah, I think these people are pretty equal in terms of like, how could the Fox News machine like demonize these people as literal demons? But I do think that AOC does have better charisma to the average person when you actually hear her speak. I think it just comes out as more authentic and more like, you can say populist, but I think it does just appeal to more people. But then you got to factor in how many racist, sexist people are gonna just kind of write her off in general. So it's a toss up for me.
Women generally tend to do better with women and worse with men when it comes to the electorate, and more women vote than men do. And I can guarantee you that like this is literally just down to like behavioral level differences between the genders. Because like, when was the last time any of you went to the dentist?
A month ago, 2 weeks, 3 weeks ago.
I'm not going to comment. I'm not going to comment on conjecture and speculation and liberal propaganda.
Should be going every year at least, guys.
I don't need the lecture.
Are you saying that women, because they'll like know when they went to the dentist, or that men don't go to the dentist?
No, it's because women tend to do these things, like the things that require regular, sustained work. They have to do with like civic duty or self-care or like obligations or paperwork or whatever. Women tend to be better with that sort of stuff, and that's why women vote at higher rates than men do. In every election, like 53% of the electorate is women, 47% is men.
Women. Lakshya, would you agree that having another man's hands in your mouth is kind of gay?
Okay, all right. Hold on. Okay. All right. We gotta wrap up soon. So, Guy, you haven't spoken in a little bit. Do you have a question for Lakshya? And then I want to close it out with a question. Yeah.
The 2028 stuff's interesting. I just think it's too early. We don't know what the issues are. We don't even have anybody declared running it. So it's all fun and games, but it's way too early for me to feel one way or the other.
Okay. All right. So I have an interesting question. Lakshya, I want you to give advice for whoever the eventual nominee is for how to make both progressives and more quote unquote moderates, which is a very broad term. Like, what is a messaging campaign that can kind of make both camps somewhat happy? Because right now I'm thinking of the fact that a significant chunk of the electorate seems to indicate to pollsters rather consistently that they think that the Democratic Party is too extreme or too liberal or whatever. And I look at polling after 2024 that showed it was something like only 4 or 5%. You know the numbers better than I do. Or only 4 or 5% of the country thought that Kamala Harris was too conservative. But we do know that this tension between the wings bleeds into the mainstream. It gets covered quite a bit. It causes a lot of disruption in moments like these. How can someone like Newsom or a dark horse candidate like Ossoff or something, how could they possibly craft a messaging campaign, a policy platform that would make voting, a progressive voting for someone in the center, more palatable?
Corruption. Go hard on anti-corruption. It's the one thing that gets everyone fired up. It's very easy to get partisan attacks in against Trump without reducing your credibility with swing voters. Ossoff, to me, is a great sleeper pick because he's done a lot of work specifically elevating the issue of corruption. It's how he won in 2020. It's how he is framing himself for 26. I think if you want to pick one issue for the Democratic primary, going hard on like corruption and elevating its salience is not a bad thing, because you get your hits against Trump, but you don't get dragged into this whole like trans surgeries for illegal immigrants type of thing that Kamala got dragged in 2019. When you get to the nomination, now you're not wounded in any sense. You have the trust of your base. You don't have to spend time placating them. You can even tell them to pound sand in a couple issues and they're going to be fine with it during the election because they're your base. But you've managed to shore up support, and it's the one thing that your base likes and swing voters love. That's
I know Pisco agrees with you. One more thing, help us settle a debate. Help us settle a debate that's been ongoing for like the last like week. What about specifically criminal legal accountability for the Trump administration? To what extent should the 2028 nominee run on, we're going to pursue the previous administration for any possible crimes?
I wouldn't say specifically the previous administration. I would just, what Ossoff does is fair, right? He says like, look, we've got a culture of people basically just, this is a culture of rapacious plutocrats just looting the government. and they're going to pay for it, right? I don't care which party you're from. Now, naturally, it just ends up being the Republican Party in most cases, but like Bob Menendez gets caught in the crossfire too, which big whoop, right? But that's the thing you should say. Like, you shouldn't make it an explicitly partisan thing. Code it as nonpartisan, and Democrats are smart enough to get the signal that you're talking about the Trump admin.
Thank you so
I
much.
just want to be clear about something. If that's determined to be the smartest thing, I obviously would support like whatever is most likely to get more votes. But I do want to be clear for my preferences. I want to just be who I'm going to vote for, who I'm going to consider the best candidate. I want to have that signal, and it might be implicit like that. But I do think a lot of Democrats care about it. But yeah.
Lakshya, thank you so much for coming on. You're one of my favorite guests. Where can people find you? Yeah, plug your channels.
Yeah.
Nowhere if it doesn't change his batteries, which you should do right now.
Yeah, I'm at The Argument. I run their polls, theargumentmag.com. If you guys check us out, love it. I'm also at split-ticket.org. So yeah, thanks for having me on, guys. I really love this. Hopefully I didn't make fun of anyone, but yeah, I love
we
this.
didn't ask you a hard question. We didn't ask you a hard question. If Platner's the nominee, will you endorse him?
I'm a poster. What does it matter? I'm a writer. I'm a journalist.
Oh, we got a little Hassan moment right now. We got a little Hassan moment right now. Appreciate you, Lakshya.
You have an audience, Lakshya, now on this podcast. By the way, all your links are in the description, so everyone can go check you out.
Bye.
Awesome, man. Take it
Later,
easy.
bro.
Enjoy the rest of your week. All right, boys. Let's talk about Iran. We'll get who wants to start on this one.
I have a lot of thoughts, but I've been talking a lot. So
I'm not from a dumb layman. All right. I don't like that we just did what I would probably consider an illegal war because we didn't go through Congress. I don't like war in general. I have no idea if this is good or not. They have been telling me the same thing over and over again for the past 30 years, which is Iran is 1 week away from weapons grade nuclear material, and it's been several weeks. I'm not quite sure if they ever were that close or if this is just an excuse, but I'm not entirely sure that killing a dictator is bad, even if I think the method, you did the wrong math to get there, but your answer is good. So someone tell me what position to take on this, other than obviously Trump is doing a bunch of illegal crap.
Guy, you've been quiet. You should jump in here.
Well, I mean, 6 soldiers dead already. No end in sight. Possible ground troops on the horizon. Seems like Iran's been sadly playing it pretty well, if you ask me, by attacking all the Gulf nations and spreading the things that need to be defended and putting the pressure on America and Israel. So I don't know where this goes, man, but it's not looking pretty right now. I mean, it's a political gold mine for the Democrats, but I hate to be, crass about it, but it seems like it's a disaster so far.
I think it's an illegal war. I think it's an unjustified war. I think it's a disgrace. I think it's a disgrace for the few Democrats who have confirmed that they're not going to vote for the war powers resolution or somehow attempt to curtail Trump's authority here. They've been lying to the American people about why they're doing it. You watch them have these ridiculous statements contradicting themselves because they know that there's no good basis to believe that Iran was, imminently about to acquire a nuclear weapon. They know this whole.
Are you talking about Moskowitz? And was there 3?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm gonna support primary challenges against those people because it is disgraceful. If we care about liberal government, and we do care about liberal government, this is just the process argument, but it's not just process; it's structural. The people of the United States gave the power to decide war, which is what they've called it. They've called it a war because it is a war, because it's obvious a war. Everyone knows it's a war. To Congress and not to the president. And the notion that we would stand by while the president usurps that authority so he can declare more emergencies here, so he can try to link it to election theft, which he's trying to do already. He's already said that. You would have to be a low IQ fool to grant him this authority or to preemptively say, we're not even going to check it. We're not even going to ask for a vote. It is disgusting that Moskowitz and friends are allowing this to happen, and I will wholeheartedly support any challenger to their seats. It's disgusting. As to the actual war itself, how does this help America? How does this help the region? We have no good reason to believe that after this air campaign, with no good, strong alternative in Iran to rise up and take ownership of the regime, there's no alternative force there to think that a regime change will be successful. This whole thing about, it's humanitarian. Have we just forgot all of our history? Who believes that Trump or the administration cares about the humanitarian well-being of the Iranian people? That's just that's lunacy. No one actually believes it. And now Trump is already signaling oh, we need someone to talk to. We want to get into talks and stuff. This will only last 4 weeks. So it was a lie from the start. Israel pushed it. That is just not even, that's not even an anti-Semitic conspiracy. There's like New York Times reporting Netanyahu was in the Oval Office pushing for this war.
And
but
he's
ultimately,
done it to previous presidents.
Yes, and he has done it before. And at this point, right, we just have to call it what it is, which is Trump is responsible, and he is Bibi's bitch. He is Bibi's bitch, and it is disgraceful. It's disgraceful. Everyone who bought this no new wars meme, all the fucking, who's this comedian, Dave Smith people, they should be ashamed of themselves. It is so disgusting. Last thing I'll say, I'll let you guys get in. All of the people are like, oh, Trump betrayed us. No, this was so obvious. It was so obvious. And I'm glad that they're feeling a little bit of shame and embarrassment. They should be embarrassed to be on the internet. That's it.
Yeah, I mean, we made all the predictions like before the election, and it was so silly. Like people go back to like a video I made on, they're like, "Wow, how did you predict he'd do the opposite of all these things?" And I'm like, everyone who paid attention knew this, and like this is not some sort of like precognition Nostradamus thing. Like they just are a lying administration, and yeah, anyone who's like, "Oh, he lied to us," I have almost no sympathy for them. It's very frustrating.
I liked it. I'm just fine. I'm just fucking with you. No, I mean, like, it's pretty stunning to me. I watched it play out, and I think like right now, I think right now Donald Trump is kind of desperate. I think he's obviously like very much physically diminishing. Now we have like a new rash thing on like the back of his neck. I don't know if you guys saw that. I think he's been talking recently. There was a press conference he gave last week where it was one of the most pathetic things. I think maybe we watched a clip of it last week where he was just like, I don't understand why we're so unpopular, and like people should be defending us more. So like, I think he understands that, this administration is just like really like kind of crumbling, and the Republican Party along with it. And I think this is his way of just kind of asserting strength. I think this is his way of feeling strong. That's not based on anything. It's just vibes. Maybe he's motivated by something else, but that seems like the most
substance.
likely.
Have you seen the movie? Every second there's a new thing growing on him.
No, I didn't see that movie yet. But like, at the same time, like, I don't know. I think it's a mistake to do what, I will not name names, but some social media commentators are doing, which is, like, so there's a lot of Democrats that are coming out, elected Democrats that are coming out with messages that condemn Khomeini and express sympathy for the people that are celebrating his death in Iran, people that have been, affected by his brutally repressive decades-long rule. And I've seen some commentators call this like weak from Democrats. And I think if you don't do that, you just look a little bit unhinged, because, to the extent that there are thousands of people in Iran that are experiencing catharsis and joy in this moment, I'm glad that those people get that feeling. I'm glad that people who have had loved ones that were murdered by this regime, or women that have been brutally repressed by this regime, I'm glad that they get to feel that for now. That doesn't change.
It's hard for them to care about the internal struggles of congressional lawful war declaration, right? They're like, I don't give a fuck. Like, my dictator's gone.
Oh, but it's not. Yeah, no, yeah. But that was true of Saddam Hussein. That's true of the Taliban, and that's true of Khamenei. Like,
no. So I'm not. But again, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying, like, I can understand. Like, I fucking despise theocracies. I despise the Islamic Republic. I'm not a fan of the Ayatollah. But it's kind of like weird to have a statement, like your official statement of it, where the premise of it is structured around obtaining a result that is ultimately unjustified to obtain because of its consequences and because of what it means internally. And so, yeah, I can be like, I'm not going to go around and shit on all like the Persians in America or the Iranians living abroad, or whatever, or the expats who are celebrating because a guy was awful. But I'm also like, not going to make the center of my statement, my official statement of response, like, wow, thank God the witch is dead, because that, I think, is missing the forest for the trees, which is what the fuck happens next. I'm brought back to Avatar: The Last Airbender when Uncle Iroh says, what next, right? You got the guy. Now what? What are you going to do? What's the plan? It doesn't feel like there's a plan. Every 2 seconds, there's another statement coming out of the administration, which, like, I think Trump said something like, well, we had some ideas about who would be the next leader, but we kind of just killed them all. What the fuck, dude? This is a mess.
No, I agree with you there. I don't necessarily agree with you on the messaging. I do think you run the risk of looking a little unhinged if you don't like throw a little line in there about how he was a fucking piece of shit. But to your point, yeah, we have, what is it, like the universe abhors a vacuum, and we've seen this exact sort of thing play out many, many times in ways where the chaos spreads, the violence spreads, and I haven't kept up to date fully on what they're doing, but it looks like Iran, to Guy's point, are maybe trying to force America's hand to agree to some kind of a ceasefire, is what I read from some foreign policy person that I follow. And I mean, what countries are they bombing right now? So they bombed Dubai. They bombed where did they bomb? Yeah, did they bomb Saudi Arabia?
United Arab Emirates, Qatar. I think Riyadh. I think they're bombed Saudi Arabia. They haven't bombed Oman. I think that's when something that's not there. Lebanon's getting involved now because Hezbollah attacked Israel and other countries too. Yeah, Bahrain. Basically, it's a regional conflict. This is exactly what, and I'll take the time now to shit on lefties because that's what Hutch wanted. I want it too because I want it too.
I'm not. Hey,
I'm just joking. I'm fucking around. It's a joke.
I've been so good this episode. I've been so
good. I know you have been. I know it's a joke. I'm riffing. But this was exactly what Joe Biden was trying to avoid. If you look at all the reports about everything that he was doing, it was to avoid a broader escalation following October 7th. And it is such a massive sort of change in the policy where Trump is now engaged in an action which was inevitably going to lead to regional conflicts. We have the Strait of Hormuz being closed down. That's going to affect oil prices, and probably not in America because we're a net exporter, et cetera, but this is going to have long-standing consequences, and it's not going to be easy. Even if America were to withdraw right now, Iran seems in no mood to negotiate and have a peaceful settlement. All of NATO and of the European countries are totally cucked to America, and everyone hates Iran anyway because Iran has been, yes, fostering terrorism, being like a bad neighbor everywhere, and everyone hates them. So it's a fucked situation, and I don't know how we're going to get out of it.
Guy, you haven't said anything. What's up? Oh, you're about.
I was going to say, what did you guys think of Kyle Kalinske making this about the Democrats and telling his audience, call to action, call Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries' office, telling them to resign now? I mean, any thoughts on this?
Well, their framing of it is completely different, right? They're not just I'm not neutral in whether or not war is good, but their whole shtick is war is, ultimately this is awful no matter what. And maybe they have good reason for this, but they're mad at the Dems who said, we want to pass a bill that makes you have to give us an explanation first. They're like, oh, the war's fine, but you just have one stopgap. That's still bad. They're living in another universe from where my understanding of it is. So whether or not they're right, I don't know. But yeah, it's completely off base. They're just mad that they're even agreeing to anything with the legal stipulation that it's allowed.
I think Schumer probably supports the policy. And I think Schumer should have stepped down for other reasons already from leadership. I don't think that it's wise to step down to resign from his Senate seat right now, just based on everything that's happening. I want his vote there just for the seat, but I do think he should resign from leadership. And Jeffries, I also think is not meeting the moment. Now, do I think that all of our energy should be spent into internal battles? Probably not, but I understand the frustration because I think based on their statements, some Democrats probably support the underlying policy, and that angers me. That angers me because it's so short-sighted. You don't think that Trump is going to try to fuck? We know that Trump, I think he'll be unsuccessful, but Trump is going to try to claim emergency powers and shit.
I kind of disagree here because Trump is saying we reached the end of our diplomacy with Iran, and forgive me, but I think we aren't sending the most talented negotiators in Jared Kushner and Steve Witkoff. So I doubt Democrats would be like, yeah, no, it's true. We need to strike now. So I don't know. I think you'd find very few Democrats supporting.
Why is Schumer not
Trump
administration? Why aren't Democrats, or sorry, they are. Why isn't Schumer saying this is a bad thing? This is an illegal thing. Why is it all premised on
I think they are.
Well,
is he not?
No, that is his major complaint. It's not that the war is bad, but the war was not declared lawfully, and that's why they need to go through this bill. And that's what the lefty critique of it is oh, you guys are on the same side. You're just worried about the process, but ultimately you're both okay with bombing Iran. That's kind of what I'm getting from them.
I haven't heard him condemn the action. He said the administration has not provided Congress and the American people with critical details about the scope and immediacy of the threat. Confronting Iran's malign regional activities, nuclear ambitions, and harsh oppression demands American strength, resolve, regional coordination, and strategic clarity. Unfortunately, President Trump's fitful cycles of lashing out and risking wider conflict are not a viable strategy. The administration must brief Congress, including an immediate all senators classified briefing and a public testimony to answer these vital questions. The Senate should quickly return to session and reassert its constitutional duty by passing our resolution to enforce the War Powers Act. My prayers are with the it's nowhere there is like this was an illegal, unjustified action, right? That's what I'm looking for, and you can just tell when they're avoiding that.
Yeah, that's definitely doesn't seem politically popular to say something like that.
To say that this is an unjustified action?
Yeah, I think the easier route is to say this is not viable. Like he said, like, what's the plan here? You just kill the leader of their country and then pray somebody decent takes over? That's not a smart strategy.
I mean, if it's not a smart strategy, then it's unjustified. Why would a dumb strategy be justified? Maybe because there's some polling that would.
Most Americans would say that guy, it's justified smoking that guy for sure.
Well, I mean, listen, obviously, I think Schumer is probably more hawkish on Iran than the average Democrat. But I think Guy's point stands where it's like probably the vast majority of elected Democrats in Congress oppose this action. And in terms of how it plays out politically, I just think this is another example of I feel like this administration is just putting on a clinic for how to, tank their own popularity. This is not going to be popular with the podcast bros. We've seen the polling. I saw one really loaded right-wing pollster phrase the question like, do you approve of, Donald Trump surgically striking Iran and eliminating, like that kind of language? But every other kind of reasonably worded poll I've seen shows that this action is pretty unpopular. It's like 25% of the country support, 50 oppose, and then 25 are, undecided on the matter, or something resembling that. And again, I just think that he is desperate to change the narrative away from the fact that he's like weak and the Republican Party are weak. And this is, in his mind, I don't know, man, it's just pure hubris. Like he thinks that people are going to get behind this, and it just doesn't appear to be true. And every day that passes and more American service members, that's going to be the thing. Like the more American service members keep dying, that is going to really push people away. And, we're already seeing him kind of drop closer to the mid 30s. And I do think we're going to see him in those mid 30s and maybe a couple weeks from now, depending on how.
And he's so blasé about them dying. He's so like,
it happens more, yeah.
It happens. Like, can you imagine if a Democrat sounded like that, man? It's just one thing I do want to say about Kyle Kalinske. I do appreciate the spirit, but I think a lot of Democrats, left-wing people, and right-wing people are using Epstein files as a cope. This ain't about the Epstein files. It's not about a distraction from the Epstein files. This is a policy.
I hate that narrative.
That's also a part of an anti-Semitic thing, if we're being honest here. It's about like, the idea that he was a sleeper cell agent for Israel, and so I'm not saying all of them are doing like Zog anti-Semitic stuff, but some of them are.
It feels like a suburban liberal mom might say like, oh, he's just trying to hide it because of the Epstein files. Like, I'm not trying to attribute anti-Semitism to it, but it's missing the forest for the trees. This policy is about power. It's about regional hegemony, and it's about something that has been in the works for years and years and years. I mean, Trump's first term policy is in line with this action: killing Soleimani, the Abraham Accords, the different relationships with the Gulf states, all to kind of isolate and go towards Iran. And instead of doing a deal, instead of finding some sort of diplomatic solution, which some people naively believe that Trump would bring in his second term.
Well, do you not think there's any credibility to the projection of like he accused Obama of he'll do this when he's unpopular, he'll attack Iran? Like, I'm not saying that's the reason he did it, and I do hate the distraction narrative because it's like obviously multiple things can be happening. It's not all about distraction, but there's a chance that Trump thought this would boost his poll numbers, and that's why he did it. I'm not going to completely write that off. It just ultimately doesn't matter. He did it, right? Like the motivation is.
I just think that Israel's been pushing for this before maybe he thought as like a secondary objective. Maybe that's there, but I think that what's going on here is the influence into the administration. People like Jared Kushner, Steve Witkoff, these kinds of people. they weren't looking for a diplomatic off ramp, or to the extent that they were being undermined by other forces within the administration. I'm not just talking about Jews. I'm not Zog posting. I'm just saying there are people who are committed to this strategy, Marco Rubio among others. And so that's what I think has happened. I think this is a broader attempt to give something that Israel wants. And that's what, again, unbiased, or I should say mainstream news reporting is reporting as well in terms of Netanyahu's ideals. Netanyahu, I think, openly says, I've been looking for this for decades. This has been a policy that I'm pursuing for decades. These are machinations that have been planned for a lot of time. And so to the extent that there's like a domestic policy eye that Trump is having, I think that's secondary. I don't think it's the tail that's moving the dog. I think is a broader geopolitical strategy.
I don't know. I don't know. Do you tell me what you think? But do you think what do you think was a bigger factor in his decision to do this? His desire to kind of change the public narrative about this administration, or his being such a mark and being manipulated by Netanyahu? I mean, I think it's both, but yeah, go ahead.
He's a fascist, and his appetite is not going to be satiated by what's going on right now. He is going to continue to do these kinds of strikes. He's getting like a head rush from what he did in Venezuela. He has all these ideological actors who are pushing him. And so this is who he is. He is fascinated with this notion of extending force. And when he was quote unquote successful in the first Iran strike, quote unquote successful in the Venezuela stuff, I think that it's going to get more. Don't expect less bellicose rhetoric, less intervention. I'm not saying that we're not out of the woods on Greenland. We're not out of the woods in Canada. People need to like really just get their head on straight. This is a war against, and the war that matters is the one domestically, and the regime change that matters is the one domestically. This guy is crazy. He is fucking insane, and he has no boundaries. That's why we need to stop him everywhere. And that's what those Democrats who are betraying, I think, the interests of the country by refusing to sign on to the War Powers Resolution. It's a disgrace. It's a complete disgrace. And I will absolutely support primary challenges against every single voter who, every congressperson who votes against it.
Did you guys see? Go ahead.
It sounds like Israel outplayed the Trump administration, which is really tragic because Marco Rubio said today that Israel was going to make a move and we had to act. We had to be proactive. Otherwise, we would have been reacting to our bases and our interests getting hit. So the fact that the Trump administration backed themselves into that corner is just absolutely pathetic, that Israel could take some action that forces us to start this.
Wait, could you explain that a little more, guys? So essentially the narrative is that Israel was going to do something that would cause retaliatory strikes on the U.S. The U.S. had to be preemptive, and therefore it's they're like almost blaming it on it. Like, we had to, like we couldn't do it. Like
Marco
Rubio literally said that. Yeah,
wow. I hadn't seen that yet.
I think it was the intelligence of the meeting that America tipped off Israel to that, which I'm surprised that we had that over Mossad. But I think that's what it was, and we couldn't stop Israel from doing the attack, and then it pulled us into this.
Master negotiator.
That's what I'm saying.
Pisco, you're still on it.
I'm sorry. It's just
no, I didn't mean to say it that way. Go for it. Yeah, go for it.
No, the constant changing narratives, obviously very distressing, very aggravating. And Guy is absolutely correct about the Rubio shit is insane. Like, imagine if that were true. If they were really, quote unquote, pressured to do it because Israel's just like, we're just going anyway. Then you start to be more sympathetic for people like, well, okay, I guess Israel decides when America goes to war. Like, that is a big fucking deal. And then second, like the plan seems to be, or at least was sold to the American people to the extent that it was remember, Trump didn't even like bother going to the American people, going to Congress to get some sort of approval, even from the population, which is different than what George Bush did, different than previous encounters and situations. So the attempt seems to have been premised on this idea that we'll bomb them all and the people will just rise up. We'll just hope and pray that they'll rise up. What are the odds that happens? What are the odds? It is so ridiculous.
I just want to say quickly, this shows you the incompetence of the Trump administration. Like, Biden was smart enough to not get boxed into a corner by Israel on stuff like this. This is a situation where Biden would have been smarter and the people around him would have been smarter to not let Israel put us in this situation, I think.
So I've never been claimed to be an expert on foreign policy, and I'm not sure how you guys are, how educated you guys are on I can't speak right now. I can't fucking speak. I'm so fucking hungry on Iran. But like, do any of you have a sense of the potential for the situation internally in Iran to like really collapse? And like, what if there's a large protest movement that comes and tries to push for democracy, and then a brutal, like violent crackdown on that by whatever, like who's gonna be the leadership in Iran? Like, yeah, I have no idea about any of this.
So there's a great deal of the what do you want to call it, the middle class, and who was disgusted by the Ayatollahs, disgusted by the regime, and obviously you have these big protests. And so there's a lot of discontent among the people against the administration. It's not a loved administration, but Iran is very different than a lot of these other conflicts that we've had, but whether it's Iraq or Afghanistan, in the sense of a much larger country. But there's no like central opposition that we anticipate is going to be in charge. It's like the son of Mohammad Reza Pahlavi. He has been out of Iran for decades and decades and decades, and there's no sign that the people are going to rally behind him. And so it's unclear. That's why when Trump is saying like the people are going to rise, the people are going to rise up, I don't think that the administration has any sense of a tangible, concrete, organized group that's able to communicate with each other, especially in the context of bombs going off in all these major cities. How is that going to lend itself towards some sort of like opposition coming up? If anything, my intuition is, though I'm not an expert, that getting rid of the Ayatollah and getting rid of a lot of its leadership, it might actually sort of take the revolution off of its heels, or any potential revolution, because now you're kind of you killed the people who have oppressed you for so long, and hardliners are now in charge. Will that actually take the gas out of the people who wanted to overthrow the Ayatollah?
I think to our brave boys in the CIA to get it done.
I mean, I'd rather they do that, to be honest. But like, I don't think Donald Trump wants a popular revolution in Iran. This is kind of like what followed the Gulf War, the first Iraq War. I mean, there were the Kurds who were asking America not for like boots on the ground support. They were just asking for like weapons to fight the regime. And the Bush administration said no. And, the idea was like they would rather have, like the devil you know versus the devil you don't. And if they really were serious about wanting there to be some kind of a popular revolution in Iran to, free them from from the mullahs or whatever, then they would lend material support to the people and try to actually do that. I'd seriously rather they do that than not at this point, because I just feel like, especially if it is the case that any kind of resistance movement is like brutally put down, thousands of people are killed in Iran. I mean, that's going to be just another thing to point at and say, like, this was just really poorly thought out. And like, what did we actually get for it after all this? Like, what's the guarantee that whatever follows?
Bush at least went in to occupy and rebuild the institutions, and try to create something approaching a structure in Iraq, trying to, like, there was an attempt, but that required boots on the ground. There's no such effort here. It's just like, okay, good luck. We'll bomb and kill a bunch of people. And I don't think that has a good chance of working.
Yeah, the timing doesn't seem like it could be worse, right? Just weeks after tens of thousands of the most excited and passionate people were mowed down in the streets, and then the regime had weeks to hunt down the leaders and the organizers. Now you want them to go out there unarmed against a very desperate regime with no help from America, except
which now has no face, right? Which now has no face. In terms of now it's going to be like, wait, this guy was just killed by foreigners, and the face of our movement, the dictator who's been in charge, or I should say the supreme leader, but who's had essentially large amounts of control over the regime, who's a hardliner, is now dead, and we don't. Who's in charge now? The same kind of energy, the same kind of spirit. It's not intuitive to me that this would be good conditions for a revolution.
Yeah, Hutch, just from what I've read, military dictatorship is on the way. That's what it seems like is bound to happen.
I genuinely think that the State Department and this administration probably prefer that. That's a more kind of, we're talking about literal like controlled opposition, right? That's like they
can work with them,
right?
Evil criminals they can work with. At least they can work something out with.
Who's going to be eager to take that job, bro? Are you fucking kidding me? Like, I don't know that. I would not be eager. I mean, maybe it'll be some complete psychopath, like religious zealot, and they're motivated by that kind of psychosis or whatever. But I would not be eager to jump in and try to fill that power vacuum right now. If I was anybody in Iran.
Yeah, it's when you get a new job and it's like, wait, what happened to the previous position? Like what was wrong with him? What did he get fired for?
And there's another kind of side effect here, which is the rules-based international order, to the extent that it was even a thing, has now been totally discredited. I mean, everyone from NATO, from our European allies, etc., falling in line. This is Keir Starmer. This is Mark Carney, who came out and gave a speech. Right? Everyone's like, "Oh yeah, we need these countries to lead the pack." No, Australia. Everyone is lining behind America in this sense, and I think that some of our moral authority, to the extent that we had any left, and to the extent that our word means anything, our negotiating leverage. What does it mean to have a guarantee from the American government? To the extent that it meant anything after the first time of Trump, it means nothing.
I had a $10 fucking super from 8Track who said the people that Trump suggests to rise up were the 30K protesters that were killed. They don't have a plan. I've heard 3 different timelines in the last 2 days. They've doomed the regular Iranian. Yeah, I don't think they give a singular flying fuck about just like the people of Iran.
Yeah. Do we want to watch Aaron Straderade linked the Caitlin Collins clip? I don't know. Apparently they got a Republican real good. If we want to watch that real quick.
You put it up. Let's go.
Let's make sure we can hear it.
Oh, this is Mark Wayne Mullins.
Nuclear armed Iran. I think it's just hard sometimes to get your head around that we were told last summer it was obliterated, and now we're saying a strike might be necessary if the talks don't work.
But obliterating is much different than rebuilding it. They are perfectly trying to rebuild it. Why do you think China
how can you
and Russia
rebuild it if it was obliterated?
But I'm just saying, but why do you think China and Russia is...
But how can you rebuild it if it was obliterated?
I've already explained that. How do you rebuild your legs after you shatter them? How do you rebuild a house after it's been knocked down by a tornado or a hurricane? You can rebuild things. The foundation may still be there. You can build a lot back on a foundation once the top of it's removed. And so the structure, if the structure of the foundation is there, they can start rebuilding.
Yeah, we'll see what the president decides. I do want to ask because
all right, so
okay. Yeah, it seemed to be a little flimsy of an answer. Also, you can't rebuild your legs when they're gone.
Theoretically, shit can get better, is what I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. It's possible.
Yeah, I didn't get a chance to actually ask Gavin Newsom questions when I met him, but he said, like, this could go well. Like, the shock could return, oil could plummet in half, like, and then maybe I'd be on Trump's side. But what's more likely to happen? Not that. So,
well, listen. On a completely separate note, unless any of you guys had any more thoughts you wanted to share. What?
Yeah, I did. Which is like, in their mind, right? Here's why the disarmament, either from the missiles perspective or the nuclear arms perspective, why that's all a red herring. Because for them, for the people who want this war, disarmament means regime change. They're the same thing, right? Just because if you leave the nucleus of the regime intact, they can always rebuild. And you can always claim that they're rebuilding. And so this kind of action, disarmament, it's a red herring. Because what they mean to say is, right, even if you obliterate, so long as you have the seeds of the same government, they can just rebuild it. And so anytime you hear that, it really just is a way to do subterfuge, because what they want is regime change. And who cares? Oh, we destroy their missiles. They'll just rebuild it, Omega lol. That's why you shouldn't believe people who try to disentangle those things. In the minds of the people who are making and conducting this war, they are the same thing. Regime change equals denuclearization and disarmament.
I mean, also my understanding is that, I could be wrong, but my understanding is that despite the fact that there were a lot of people in Iran that did not like that regime, there were a lot of people dancing in the streets in Iran after it happened, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the people there are super pro-America. So I feel like from the perspective of the administration, you would rather have like a successor, totalitarian regime that is scared shitless that Donald Trump is going to bomb the fuck out of them and just completely decapitate their entire leadership than, a popular revolution led by, a populace that are generally anti-US, right? Like, how many people within Iran are pro-US? Does anybody have a sense of that?
I don't, but I don't think it's a lot.
Probably not a lot.
Right. Yeah. Well, there's a few other things
of Israel who.
Go ahead.
Or fans of Israel who is conducting a lot of these strikes. I actually think that the Iranian people and Americans are like natural allies in other contexts. I really do not like this regime, but this is just not the way that you do that, which would like ingratiate yourself when you do these bombs. I don't think that there's any good basis to believe. And yes, there were definitely people celebrating across the world and within Iran. That's true of Saddam. And now it seems like everyone sort of takes it as, I don't know, common knowledge, as a trope that Iraq and Afghanistan were ill-conceived adventures, at least the way they turned out. And so, yeah, I just would not put a lot of stake into people in the immediate aftermath of the killing of a tyrant that's going to mean that all sunshines and rainbows. Not saying that you said that, by the way.
Couldn't find a quick answer for Iranian support of America because everything's America-centric, but only 1 in 4 people support the strike. So this is, probably, as we said, going to be disastrous for Trump's approval.
Yeah. Okay. Well, there's a couple other things that I think were really kind of crucially important that happened this week. But I do want to point out that somebody proposed a compromise between my position of, Newsom or whoever the candidate not run on prosecuting Trump, and then the other perspective, the Rashad perspective. The fucking compromise is Congress investigates and does a criminal referral to DOJ, and then you do it that way. What do you guys think of that?
Yeah, that's fine.
Again?
Yeah, I'm fine as long as they're messaging, they don't have to be explicitly, I'm going after my opponents, and they're like, hey, we're going to prosecute corruption. I trust Congress to, investigate to the extent of their legal abilities. That's, I'd be.
They can say whatever.
Yeah, exactly. The Congress, they can say we're going to go after Trump. There's nothing like inherently, illiberal with that.
No, but Hutch, I don't think there's anything illiberal about investigating Trump for the DOJ either. If you're just talking about what Newsom should say, fine, say that. But I don't want that to be the only thing. I want Newsom's DOJ, if he wins the election or whatever, to be going after the previous administration. Say whatever you want, and if that's like the way we do it, that's fine. But I do want independent investigations.
I mean, I do too. Just for the record, I feel like that is not widely known for whatever reason. But of course, I want, if there's to the extent
I think you do.
Yeah. Okay, so there's 2 other things that I want to get to with you guys today. One of them was the Anthropic. Fucking what's the ChatGPT? What's that one called again?
Claude?
ChatGPT?
Anthropic's Claude. And which ChatGPT is what's the
OpenAI?
OpenAI, yeah. That whole thing with the Department of Defense or the Department of War, whatever you want to call it. And then also the Paramount fucking WB merger is potentially pretty significant too, with Barry Weiss getting control of CNN. So you guys take it away. Whoever wants to jump on either of those topics.
I'm mad
because actually just fucked up.
I was linked to a very good article on the Anthropic thing, and I haven't read it yet, so I don't have as strong an informed opinion. But basically, I don't like when we're injecting AI into any sort of military decisions right now, especially because you do look at a lot of the testing of like war simulations. A lot of them are very quick to use nuclear bombs because it's a quick and easy solution to eliminating your enemy. And I just don't know to the extent of which I've seen how LLMs work for me that they would be any better or for military decisions. But it seems like we've already been using them for the Venezuela plan. Maybe that's why Iran is going the way it is, because they've already been using it and didn't tell us. And it's like, you know what, bombing Iran was very good, and we're very happy that you made that decision. And I suspect that you always have a good plan. It's just affirming everything. I don't know, but in general, I would be opposed to it.
So just to be clear, the Anthropic CEO was making the rounds because there was some kind of consequence that Hegseth imposed on Anthropic that could potentially imperil their ability to do any kind of business with like Amazon and other like Google and like other like really big companies. And he was bringing up the concerns that Anthropic had because they had been negotiating with the Department of Defense for I think several months about establishing some kind of partnership. And Anthropic's big concerns, there were a few of the concerns, but the big concerns were they didn't feel comfortable because the Department of Defense was not giving them 100% assurances, something binding to say that the technology would not be used for like fully automated weapon systems, like military weapon systems. And then they had concerns about mass surveillance. And the way he put it, I found to be kind of horrifying because he said there's actually nothing like illegal right now if the government wanted to spend a bunch of money and just buy a shitload of user data from a bunch of different websites, or I guess assert government authority and just like take I don't know, might be some constitutional fight there, and then use these kind of AI models to develop profiles for people. And we can all see where this is going. It gets very kind of Orwellian really quickly. So that fell through, and then XAI, is it not? It's not XAI. OpenAI announced like the night of, like Sam Altman was putting out a tweet saying that they have entered an agreement with the Department of Defense. So I don't know. This is pretty scary to me. I don't know if you guys have thoughts on this, but yeah, it's kind of horrifying.
Yeah, I think that it's pretty fucked up that the administration, even just how they're like trying to deal with these companies, is always maximalist, always wants complete subservience, complete obedience. That rubs me the wrong way. And when paired with like these tools, whether it's Palantir or whether it's AI and shit, is very despotic. It's very I get very fucking concerned about the amount of surveillance, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, I think it's really bad, and I think that the next Democratic administration needs to come in and like take a hammer to some of these markets and organizations with antitrust regulation, with specific AI regulation. They got to start doing something.
I mean, what do you guys think of the idea that like what I thought, one of the things that I find really horrifying is that we may not have a choice in terms of developing these kinds of weapon systems, or potentially developing fully automated weapon systems if our enemies and adversaries like develop this technology and then get like a huge advantage on us. Then it becomes completely indefensible to say that we shouldn't have any kind of research into fully automated systems. And so I do feel like a certain sense of dread or inevitability about what the next 20 years are going to look like.
It's the Cold War all over again, right? We can't say like, oh yeah, well, nuclear bombs could be the end of all the war, therefore no one should use them. You can't deproliferate there. Like, they're going to use AI, we have to use AI to counter it. It's going to be a race to the bottom, and hope that we don't have another situation where someone accidentally thinks, or one AI accidentally thinks that it's about to be the next big thing and they've got to preemptively strike. We avoided that 2 or 3 times in the Cold War, and we could have to avoid it thousands, if not tens of thousands, depending on who's the actual person making the decision in the middle. If it's a person with empathy who sees, hey, maybe my computer's making a mistake and I shouldn't launch nukes at America, versus a computer that's going to algorithmically make the best decision every time, that's a lot more scary to me. And I don't think there's a big way to stop it unless we have like a big world congregation of people willing to say, holy shit, maybe we should slow this down. There's like several.
You say that as a time where like the world is like alliances are fracturing and we're moving away from each other. So this kind of like cooperation and consensus and agreement seems to be being pushed further out of reach in a moment where it feels like it's going to be needed if we're going to avert some kind of disaster.
Yeah, there's a book by his name's Eli Yudowski. He worked in like AI safety for a really long time. He's like very doom-pilled on this, and I just read it a few months ago. It's called "If Anyone Builds It, Everyone Dies," and they talk about this kind of stuff. And it's like one of those, like, I don't know if there's anything we can do unless more people get that sort of information and start calling their senators and be like, you got this these old people who just do not understand computers, let alone how an LLM works, and you're going to have to petition these people to put safeguards on this stuff. I think there's no way.
Straighterades in chat, I'm talking about the distinction between using AI with a human component as well to fully automated, like massive weapon systems. There is a difference between
it's called human in the loop or not. And
right.
It sounds like we might not have human in the loop pretty soon.
Right. Well, what was the other thing I said? So there was the AI thing, and then what was the other one? I already forgot. Oh, the merger, the WB. Oh, you're muted, Pisco.
Oh, I was saying Melania Trump being at the chair of the UN Security Council. That was pretty funny.
I didn't see that. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, that's funny. No, but I'm just kidding. But the merger is fucked up because they're just going to turn CNN and all these other entities into the equivalent of what CBS has been turned into as a wing of MAGA. That's what they're doing.
CBS's lineup for the night was it the night of or the night after the military strike? Their entire lineup of people that they were interviewing, it was like 5 different guests. All of them were bombing Iran. So the idea that they would get CNN as well, I mean, that is very, very concerning. I don't know enough about the regulatory process. Like, can California block the deal, or can the federal government override California?
No, it depends on what. Yeah, it's federal. Like, there are regulations in terms of approving these mergers. They need to happen. There's there's a lot of like checks to get it done, which also include certain things that specific to like the corporate form of these entities. And so there's like time. There will need to be time before the merger is finally, completed. But with these people in charge of the federal government, it just seems very doubtful that, in terms of the federal regulatory checks, that this won't pass.
CNN's been cucked for a while, man. They just give that Scott Jennings prick a platform every night to run his mouth unchecked. So I gave up on them a long time ago.
All right, it could get a lot worse, though. It could definitely get a lot worse.
Sure.
I mean, because I think they still have a slight left-wing bend when you look at the opinion panels and who is hosting these things. But if Barry Weiss gets control of that too, I mean, my goodness, it is concerning. And then, I mean, Netflix though, I mean, fucking talk about like do nothing profit. They got $2 billion for the cancellation fee for that contract. So their stock went way up right the day after.
They literally can't. You guys need to understand, like, the offer. Some offers are literally too good to pass up. In terms of, it would actually be a breach of like fiduciary duty for the board of the respective boards to like not complete a deal if it's that valuable. And so, yes, it's true that there's like corporate. I think there was you're talking about like the $2 billion or so that Netflix got for them not consummating the deal. Yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah.
But for the people who are like most mad at the corporations, like there are certain legal requirements in terms of obliging by your duty to the shareholders, et cetera, to take a deal that's like that good. And so the real enemies here are like the Trump administration, as with everything else.
Do you guys have any final predictions on the Crockett-Tallarico race and what's going to happen there? Do you think Tallarico's got this in the bag or what?
I think Tallarico's going to win. I mean, the polling for this particular race is kind of insane. You'll see one poll one day with like Crockett plus 12, and then the next day there's another poll with. I've really never seen polling quite this schizophrenic. I mean, I wanted to ask Lakshya a little bit more about that because he was talking about kind of junk polls. But it does seem to be the case that when you look at the more kind of well-known, credible pollsters, Tallarico does seem to be ahead by, roughly like 5 to 8 points. I sure hope he's the nominee. I do think he would be a much better nominee. I was so fucking disappointed when I saw, not necessarily surprised, but Kamala make that endorsement. I was like, what the fuck, bro? But I don't know. I mean, she did it really late. Like, that's kind of crazy. Why didn't she do that like a month ago? Why would she wait like fucking 5 days before the election?
He wants the clout.
Yeah, go ahead, Pisco.
It's a low cost bet, right? Because if Crockett wins, she can take credit like who's that guy, Clyburn in South Carolina?
Jim Clyburn.
Doing it like very close in
South
time.
Carolina.
Yeah, and if she ends up winning, it's like a low cost bet because if Tallarico wins, she can just endorse Tallarico the next day. And if Crockett wins, and she's like the most notable person to endorse Crockett right before she wins, days before, she'll get all the credit. So she's being selfish, in my opinion, and politically savvy. Another word for it.
I just don't view Crockett as like a serious candidate. Like, I don't know if she's like serious about winning. Like, to be honest, just the way she runs her campaign. That just, I don't know. To me, I think Tallarico, I think for sure thinks he can win and wants to win. And I just don't get those vibes from her. I mean, speaking of unconventional candidates, did you see the stuff with Kat Abugazela?
That's how you pronounce it.
Yeah, she's based. I'm gonna endorse her. I'm gonna endorse her because she's based.
Did you see that? Did you see what happened with that?
Yeah, well, some people were talking shit about her because she like thinks Putin's a bad person and like would stand by Taiwan and shit. So like that was cringe as fuck. And so that made me like her a lot more. I went and hung out in her stream a little, not in her stream, in her chat when she was playing Among Us, and she was like, "Yeah, I'm not gonna like support Putin just because he like I don't know, dumb reasons because imperialism." And so that made her very based in my mind. And so I'm probably gonna endorse her. Not that it matters. My endorsement means nothing. I just
did you have like a huge swath of like far left support before that, and then they're like, "What do you mean that you would defend Taiwan?"
Wait, what? She's an interventionist. She's an intervention. No, if she's saying that she's going to support Ukraine, I think that's fucking based. And if she's against Putin, I think that's good. I think she's against the Chinese Communist Party. That's good. That's a reason to be delighted with her, not to be against her.
Ooh, but Aaron in chat says you're straw manning, so I don't know if that's true.
Strawman,
Well,
what?
you know.
What happened?
I just want to
what?
start shit between old podcasts, so it's, that's my thing. I got Hutch Pisco now, but now they're being so nice to each other. I got to get Aaron to yell at Pisco. So
Yeah, no. I mean, I really just think that her positioning, to the extent that it's supporting Ukraine and in favor of funding Ukraine, to the extent that it's supporting Taiwan, I think that's all fine. I don't think that's a problem.
I think she's going to have a tough time in that race, but my opinion of her went up. I was like, oh, damn. Like, because I saw clips. It wasn't just like messages. I saw clips of her giving really detailed, like policies of like what she would support when it came to Taiwan, when it came to Ukraine. And, my impression of her was not that before. She's another candidate where I'm kind of like, is she a serious candidate? I don't really know. But when I saw that, my opinion of her definitely went up. I don't know anything about any of the other candidates in that race. There's just like way too many races in the country to pay attention to all of them. But yeah, that was interesting. All right, boys. It feels like the vibes are getting kind of low. Are we ready to close this thing out?
No, I just, the war shit is fucking shit, man. I don't know what to say. It's like I've been doom scrolling, and COVID still has me a little bit. I don't know if you guys ever got back pain associated with your COVID, but I took the test and I'm now negative, but I've developed this back pain off of COVID.
No, that's just called being 30, Pisco.
No.
Yeah.
That's not what it's called.
Yeah, stretch your hamstrings and your glutes. That made me feel better.
Oh, really? Okay.
Usually back pain is like your muscles are tight pulling on your back. So try that.
I looked it up. It's someone says it's a very common side effect of COVID. I don't think it was anything else because I've been kind of like keeping it very easy with the virus, but yeah, low energy.
Wait, hold on. What did you guys think of the fucking Tourette's situation?
No.
What Tourette's situation?
So what was it? The BAFTA Awards, and Michael B. Jordan and one of the co-stars,
Delroy Lindo. He's a pretty legendary actor. Put some respect on his name, but go ahead.
I forgot, but he was the one of the musicians and singers, and a guy with Tourette's shouted the N-word when they were getting their award. And I mean, I'm not a Tourette's expert. My understanding is, you get the compulsive thoughts that other people have, but they not just thoughts. They're literally compulsive actions and words that you'll shout in the most inopportune moments, which is awful. And I'm sure it's very embarrassing for him. But goddamn, I mean, that sucks for the people who get to hear the N-word shouted at them at their moment of triumph. That's fucking terrible.
Yeah,
awful.
I mean, I asked the question on my stream the next day, like, is it ableist to suggest that maybe that person doesn't attend an event like that? And I had some people say yes. And it's like, well, like I'm sympathetic to that, like in an ideal situation, people would understand that someone has a neurological condition where, my understanding is that like that manifestation of Tourette's is not universal. Not everybody has that kind of manifestation, but it is about saying like the most taboo thing. Like the uncontrollable impulse is a neurological condition. And the point is to just shout something really taboo. And what do you shout when there's two black men on the stage giving an award? You shout the N-word. And my understanding was that he was the subject of a movie that was meant to like
promote.
He was meant to like raise awareness of the condition.
You don't take a baby into the movie theater because it won't stop crying. And I don't think it's ableist to say if you can't control yourself for, if it's not, impulse control, it's literally you have a disability, but it's going to cause you to disrupt this ceremony. Maybe don't go. I don't think that's a crazy ask.
It's great promotion for the movie, though, whatever the Tourette's movie is.
Maybe it was on purpose. I was going to say. That's a good conspiracy.
I will say, though, like if you have like a illness that causes you to like uncontrollably vomit or like poop your pants in the middle of a theater and like diarrhea yourself, like you probably wouldn't go to those events. I don't know.
Right.
Yeah, it was I don't know. I feel like I'm obviously sympathetic to, like, I think I understand why if I detach myself. I'm obviously a white person. I've never been a black person who's been called the N-word, but like, I felt like so bad for the guy because, the larger response, especially from like a lot of black celebrities, even there was another award ceremony either a couple days ago or last night, and people were kind of like applauding Michael B. Jordan and Delroy Lindo for being like very brave in that moment or something like that. And with the implication being that, it just seemed like a lot of people were not lending credence to the idea that he did it uncontrollably, and they're just convinced that it was like he was just meaning to be this like racist person. And so that made me sad for that guy. I was like, fuck, bro.
It's also a little hard to understand, right? Because like you have to combine the fact that there's a disease that couples with some sort of environmental learning, right? Like a disease can't make you say the N-word inherently because it's a word that you learned, but the disease can make you have compulsive thoughts that are taboo, that you understand are taboo, but then it's like, overcoming your decision making. Like that's it's hard to like wrap your brain around that. I remember as a kid, I was like, how come they only say the F word? How come they don't say something else, right? Like it didn't make sense to me until someone explained. So it actually, these sorts of things actually do raise awareness, but I don't know.
This is
I have a question for some people saying it's ableist in the chat. Okay, for the people saying ableist in the chat, how many N-words does he have to say before like he should excuse himself? Like if he really just kept on saying it, would you be like, yo, no, you have to take infinite N-words until the end of the show? Like, is it really that? I'm like, is that the case?
Why not add if they literally have these signs. Sorry guys, sorry, you got cut off like 3 times there.
Well, he just needs one of those Joker signs that says I have a condition.
And then the little laminated car.
Yeah.
But why not, like, we literally have the technology. Why not add a fucking NVIDIA like RTX voice filter? And like,
that. You just
I have an idea. We should make
delays for these broadcasts, right? Like, why were they not able to cut this out? If they're able to cut out all the other stuff that they usually
That's
do.
a good point. Why not have like a booth okay, I got it, guys.
Oh dear.
Every single area of like a show, a theater should have like a private noise canceled booth. One of those.
The Tourette's cone of silence.
Yes.
What if both your kids have Tourette's?
I'm not. No.
So apparently the guy excused himself. Apparently the guy excused himself.
Accommodations.
No, but apparently the guy excused himself and walked out when he did it, though.
Yeah,
so
which is
a
fair thing to do.
Yeah. Anyways, that's rough.
Last question: what if he was black though?
I don't know.
And Pisco, by the way, if you do shit yourself uncontrollably, I think you still have a right to go see whatever you want. Okay. That's unfair of you, okay? But he has a right to diarrhea himself in front of everybody. And
I have some experience with that, so I can give you tips if you want. Don't drink.
People are gonna be offended by that guy.
Don't drink spoiled.
How can you say Tourette's is the same thing as diarrhea? You're saying it's the same exact thing.
Diarrhea is worse than Tourette's. I would feel like because the smell is perpetual. The Tourette's you can put in the earplugs.
I think I would rather have diarrhea than that kind of Tourette's. Are you kidding me?
No. I'm saying for everyone else. I'm not trying to be empathetic. I'm thinking how it would affect me, the non-disabled person.
If I was like watching a movie, I'm just gonna be honest. I'm gonna be real with everyone in the chat. If I was watching like a movie I cared about, let's say it's Django Unchained or something for the first time. And we have some fucking guy in the theater and I know the movie itself contains a lot of like N-bombs, but I would be pissed and I might leave. Like,
what if he was like, bro, I have a condition. It's not going to happen again.
I'm like, okay, I guess I can't be here. We all need to leave, or people like, I don't want to, it ruins my experience to have people just shouting in the middle of this stuff.
Can we explore the legality of a separate but equal room for people with Tourette's?
Oh my God.
Just shout as loud
no,
as
but you can be in the theater, just have it be in view of everyone else, and we're all sharing it.
A box on your head that we can't hear what you shout.
Because I feel like it's not illegal to segregate smokers. You could have the N-word room, right?
Jeez.
The N-word.
I'd rather have a place for people who have those kinds of conditions than a smoker's room. I just think that there are reasonable accommodations that we can make, but one of the things that's not reasonable is having the entire show. If this doesn't happen a lot, right, guys? This doesn't happen a lot, but I don't think it's ableist to be like he should excuse himself. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, listen, if we lived in a world where everybody had like full knowledge of the condition and patience for people with the condition, then that would be one thing. But we just don't. We just don't. And the broader discourse that kicked off is just
we know he excused himself. The question is like, should we be okay with that being around? Was it good? Was it bad? Like, what's the prescription? That's what I'm getting at. But yes, he obviously excused himself. That's good.
What were you saying, guy?
I mean, you can't accommodate everybody for everything, and it sounds like the only reason he was there, he probably was mortified, and the only reason he was there is because he was there promoting his film and all that and whatever.
And he did a wonderful job with that.
Well, reportedly, he reached out to Delroy Lindo's team and Michael B. Jordan's team to like convey an apology and they stonewalled him, and it's like, bro, come on. Like, I don't know. Like, I kind of get it, but at the same time, it's like, man, come on. I felt so bad for that guy.
Yes, no babies in restaurants. I agree. You guys are getting it. No babies in restaurants either. I totally agree.
Yeah.
Are you saying verbal threats are like babies, Pisco?
Baby specific restaurants, family friendly restaurants. That's okay. We can have family friendly, but when you're at like an excellent restaurant, like, why are you bringing your baby? Okay, you know what? I'm gonna sound so out of touch. Never mind.
You never.
I'm canceled. I'm gonna sound so out of touch. You don't know anything about what it is. Yeah. Okay. Got it.
Yeah. You never know. Who knows? I had a baby next to
surrender hands. I surrender.
I had a baby recent flight, and it's like I chose. I could be pissed, or I just be. Try to make it cool for the mom, and I chose. Let's just make it cool for the mom. I was like, look at this little cutie.
Yeah. Not to brag, but I
love this baby crying.
Infinite patience for babies on flights, and it pisses.
The infinite the N-word, Hutch.
I just. Oh my god! All right, let's call it there, guys. Let's call it there. What are you guys doing this week? Guy, go ahead.
No, nothing exciting. I'm just debating on TikTok, listening to MAGA tell me that they love the Iran war, so it's fascinating.
Pisco, go ahead.
I might stream after this, like an hour or two after it. Might not. At some point, I need to get back to the city. I'm feeling probably about 85%, except for the back pain post-COVID, but it really hit me hard. I was like not expecting how long the recovery is on this. It's pretty crazy.
How long were you sick? Was it like, yeah,
like 4 or 5 days? The day that we talked, I was like, it was hard to breathe. Yeah, it was like that.
That's rough.
Yeah.
Swipe what are you up to?
Yeah, I'm rushing out a video for this week. It's already late. I'm sorry, everyone, but I'm doing it. They keep dropping Epstein news, and I keep having to update at the end of it. So that should be coming out this week. I don't think I have any other streams, and I did have one super chat that I did want to point out for the stream thing. Like, the broadcasters apparently have been able to censor other slurs and Free Palestine. So if they could do that, they should have been able to censor the N-word. So I think who gets the most grievance? It's the people airing it. They should have accommodated that.
So just to be clear, the BBC was actually the one that censored Free Palestine. And I think the BBC has like a universal policy of like no kind of politics of that kind of thing. And so yeah, there was some, I think, misunderstanding there. But yeah, anyways.
Maybe British people don't know it's a slur because they like don't have cultural awareness. It's
just strange how well, I don't know, maybe they might have censored it in BBC, I don't know, but anyways, I am going to be having a conversation with Straight Ray tomorrow. She wants to fight me on something. I don't really and then I'm also setting up a time, don't know when it's going to happen. It's probably going to happen soon, where like I've been having a lot of conflict with DGG about like how much do we stick with liberalism versus how much we don't. And it got to a point where a conversation with Destiny himself just became unavoidable. So we're going to set up some kind of time, and I'm going to debate him on his more illiberal instincts as of late. That'll probably be sometime this week. But other than that, tomorrow it's going to be 8:30 a.m. start, 11:30 a.m. Eastern, and that's what I'm up to this week.
Okay. Good work, boys. I'll see you on the front lines next week when we're all drafted, except for Pisco because he's too old with the back pain. He's going to be a guy in the chair.
I'll be with my Tourette's box. Thank you guys so much, and stay cool. Don't say the N-word.
Have a good week, everybody.
Great advice.